Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're continuing our mysterious what-if story. What if Kirei returned to Konoha? Itachi, Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi and Kurama changed forever. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future episodes. If you're enjoying the story, comment below. Kirei's true power. Now sit back, relax, and discover the shocking events that follow Kirei's return to Konoha. Let's begin. Part 3. Flashback. Kirei stared, her body unmoving, her eyes glazed over, entranced by his beauty, watching Uchiha Itachi as he ate rice balls with his eyes closed. His breathing even, and his anbu plate lay discarded against the other side the tree. He seemed so calm and it made the peaceful forest scenery look more zen than it already was. Kirei sat, knees bent and butt sitting on feet. For only 7 years old, she kept still fairly well. It was as if she was afraid to disrupt the peace. Why? Itachi murmured softly. He was a genius and he usually understood people around him and actions they made, but the Kyuubi container, she was a mystery. Why what Itachi-kun? She asked, cutely tilting her head to the side. Itachi's eyes opened halfway, looking back at a playful Kirei. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be playing with the others? He asked. Kirei giggled. You're more interesting. Besides, villagers around here usually treat me like royalty and I don't like that. She smiled, but when I am around you, I feel funny. My stomach gets woozy and all I want to do is make you happy. She chirped. Itachi sat up straight and offered her a rice ball which she devoured in seconds. But what makes you think that I am not happy? Kirei flinched at his cold tone, then took a deep breath to relax her nerves. Because you have those lonely eyes. I used to have them until I came here. She gestured with her arms the area they were in. I have a family and one friend who is sick at the moment, but I already think that it is so much. I don't deserve it, but I will make the best of it and protect them with all that I have got. She smiled triumphantly and Itachi raised an eyebrow. You are weird. You are a sad excuse for a container, he stated, adding a smirk. Kirei pouted. I will tell Gigi that you are not doing your mission properly, she said with her arms folded across her chest. Itachi smirked. The mission is long since abandoned. I am now a missing ninja. He smirked at Kirei's shocked face. Do you not smell the blood that has stained my clothes? I have slaughtered my family, leaving Sasuke as the only survivor. He was prepared for her to scream and run away. He was prepared for her to show fear, yet she launched herself around his weights and hugged him. Itachi-kun, she hollered in between sobs. You came back for me. Itachi stared at the girl. He was not used to close contact other than the battlefield. He did not know why he came here. Did he come here to warn her? Did he come here to see her again? Would he miss her? What is the emotion that clutched his heart? He was Anbu, a tool. He shouldn't be able to feel. This girl will only get in the way in the long run. I think I know why you came back, she said happily into his shirt. Itachi was flabbergasted. Maybe he should let her voice her opinion before leaving. You came back because you remembered those lonely eyes I had. You know what? It will be my mission to help you get rid of those eyes. I want to see you happy. He muttered. Maybe he should let her in. She is the Kyuubi container. She should be strong enough to hold her own in battle, and if she died, she would be weak. He didn't need a weak companion. He will continue to visit her. She is, after all, the first person other than his mother to not see him as a weapon, and maybe she wouldn't turn on him like the others. He slowly brought his hand down to the top of her head and pats her affectionately. I guess he still needed some work. Kirei, stop neglecting your training and get back here, echoed through the forest. Some birds took flight, afraid of the wrath that was Talum when students refused to apply themselves. Itachi tensed. It was time for him to go. Nay, Itachi-kun, come back and visit me, okay? Kirei asked, looking up at him with a sad smile. Itachi nodded. He would like to keep close tabs on her because of the Kyuubi, plus, it was amusing to see her try something his mother has failed at. He stood up. Kirei still latched onto him, and picked up his chest plate, then poofed out of here. Kirei stumbled, realizing that she was holding air, and regained her footing quickly. She frowned. He had killed his clan. That was horrible. That was his family. Why would he get rid of the one thing people cherish the most? She suddenly felt very sad. She must repay her respects to the family. It was the one she loved who harmed them in the first place. End flashback. Kirei gripped the railing hard until her knuckles turned white. Was she hearing correctly? Did Ichiro just say what she thought he said? What personal needs does Sasuke want her for? Time for some analyzing. Sasuke is the last member of his clan. He is an Avenger, the only reason he would need a girlfriend would be to have sex and make Uchiha babies. Is that what Ichiro meant? That if they were together, he would just use her to make babies? Would she have to fake orgasms? Honestly, Kirei, get your mind out of the gutter, she heard from the back of her mind. She began to giggle, causing people around her to stare at her awkwardly. But seriously, if Ichiro spoke the truth, how could she ever face Sasuke knowing he looked at her to be his sex slave? Okamura, which is actually the god of wind for her tribe. Kirei decided to stop thinking of the same thing and glanced back at Lee and Guy. They spoke just like her, yet she never met them before. But she did remember something, maybe he was related to the figure. Flashback. It was cold. The landlord wasn't here yet. She felt like she was being watched. Every 5 seconds a quick glance over her shoulders, then continue looking at the picture book she stole from the library. The rain kept coming through a broken window that she was going to fix the next day. A couple more allowances from the Hokage and she would be set to fix up her home. She could fix it so the outside wasn't looking like the inside. Just a couple more weeks. Aku. She rubbed her nose and scooted closer to the lit garbage can in front of her that provided warmth. What day was it today? Crash. Bang. The front door fell to the ground and Kirei backed away as far as his little 4-year-old legs could take her. Ah yes, it was the day before her birthday. Today, she will be receiving early gifts. You stupid demon, yelled a scruffy-looking man. He was holding a kunai improperly and it indicated that he wasn't a ninja. After that man was at least 4 more people and fear welled up inside her. She turned to the broken window and jumped, crying out as the shards pierced her skin. She kept running and running, her vision foggy from the heavy rain pouring in. All she could see were fog and a figure who was approaching. She could hear the footsteps behind her and began to pick up the pace. The figure was so close, and just as she was about to pass him, when he grabbed her and put her on his back. What are you doing? The demon was right between our grasp. She heard the familiar voice of the scruffy man. The figure holding her entered a pose. Have your flames dimmed during the storm? If you do not leave this passionate youth alone, I will be forced to use my fist. He made another pose and Kirei was in awe at this man. He would risk his life to save her. The scruffy man snorted, then charged. In a matter of seconds, all 5 men were on the ground groaning in pain. Thanks, mister. You saved me, Kirei said after torrents of coughs. The figure did the pose again. Anything for a growing youth as yourself. You must spread passion and youth for non-heroes so that they can become like me, a youthful and passionate hero. He laughed loudly and Kirei couldn't help but smile. End flashback. What was the matter with Ichiro? Since when did Sasuke, the last Uchiha in Konoha, ever showed interest in Kirei? He quickly dodged a flying sickle heading towards his head. Was the idiot trying to kill him? Is that all you got? Screamed Ichiro. Sasuke glared. Why does he have so much rage? He must have kept it bottled inside for so long. Quickly analyzing the situation, he discovered that he wouldn't be able to use chakra. He gritted his teeth. That nasty snake man will pay, Uchiha. Why are you holding back? Ichiro taunted, this time throwing both sickles. Sasuke backflipped away, happy to have distance. Sasuke knew that Ichiro was well equipped in ninjutsu and kenjutsu, but his taijutsu lacked because he spent so much time with his weapon. He watched as he winced, then continued to launch projectiles and his weapon towards him, and Sasuke had no choice but to dodge. The only way I can win is if I disarm him. He still hasn't healed as quickly as I have, so his chakra will be lacking, not to mention his wound could reopen, Sasuke mumbled. He then pulled out 2 kunai in each hand and got ready. They both charged at each other and the sound of metal on metal rung in the ears of the spectators. Ichiro, get a grip, I am not interested in Kirei, I want and need power, I am an Avenger. They both jumped back, seeing as they were evenly matched. Uchiha, you are only lying to yourself. He shot his sickle forward and it wrapped around Sasuke. Ichiro shot the other sickle and it also wrapped around him. He smirked and began to pull on the chains, causing Sasuke to gasp for air. I also have been keeping a lie to the both of you. Team 7's eyes widened in surprise. I also have a third element that runs through my family line. Yes, they aren't ninjas, but they were, until greed overpowered their vision and they became power-hungry fools. Our powers were sealed and the only way of reopening them would be to protect the person you love with all your might, knowing you could probably die. He glanced up at Kirei. Thank you, and Sasuke knew he was in for trouble. Ichiro turned back to Sasuke. Our power was an affinity to lightning. Since I am not blinded like my family, I am able to call upon it when I need. He stomped his foot on the ground. Earth release. Mild decapitation technique. Sasuke's feet began to sink until he couldn't move it. Indigo Clan Forbidden Technique, Lightning Strike, and Electricity moved from Ichiro's hands and traveled on his chains that were wrapped around the Uchiha. The rookies were shocked. Sasuke was going to lose. Wasn't he the rookie of the year? This is impossible. Kirei bit her lip until blood came out. Didn't she promise Itachi to take care of his brother? She promised, yet she can't even fulfill a promise to the one she loved. Sasuke smirked as his body convulsed. Ichiro raised an eyebrow. Was he seeing things? Sasuke's figure fell to the ground and dust covered the view of the fighters and spectators. The dust finally lifted, and Ichiro looked at what was supposed to be Sasuke. It was a log. He performed a replacement technique in such a situation. He said. Sasuke smirked from behind Ichiro and began doing the seals for Grand Fireball technique when the curse seal pulsed, causing him to clutch it in pain. I will not let this control me. He grunted, then dashed towards Ichiro and began what seemed like the leaf shadow dance. Ichiro let go of his chains and went flying into the air. Sasuke kicked him higher up, punched him to the side, kicked him, punched him, then sent an axe kick sending him tumbling to the ground. Lion combo. Ichiro was unconscious before he even hit the ground. Winner, Uchiha Sasuke, called Hayate, the proctor for this section of the exam. Sasuke walked up the stairs to be immediately escorted with Kakashi to seal his curse seal. Kirei watched the matches, lost in her own thoughts. The second match was both of Kabuto's teammates versus each other and it ended in a draw. Kirei zoned out for an hour and asked Shino what was going on. And I actually don't remember the matches that much, so I'll just do the mildly interesting ones. Shikamaru vs Kin, Shikamaru won. Dosu vs Choji, Dosu won. The members of Kabuto-san's team against each other ended in a tie. Zaku vs me, I won. Ten vs Ino, Ten won. Kankuro, Gaara and Temari of the Sand are left, along with Yu, Neji, Kiba, Lee and Hinata. He pushed up his glasses and Kirei nodded, then looked around the room. Where is Kabuto? She asked. He claims he's too tired to continue, and she nodded, then leaned over the bar and waited for someone to be called. The screen flashed Hyuga Hinata vs Hyuga Neji and both made their way to the arena. Neji started by calling Hinata names and just overall bring her confidence down. Kiba was yelling widely for her to kick his ass. Kirei glared at Neji. What a puss. Go Hinata, kick that pompous piece of garbage's ass. Show him who's boss. Rip his balls out, poke his eyes out, give out his secrets, make him kiss Lee, give him OOOF. Kirei's cries were cut off when Kakashi's hand found its way to her mouth. Kirei-chan, I don't think that was proper language. She settled down for now. There was no way to put this nicely, but Hinata lost and almost lost her life if Asuma, Kurenai and Guy hadn't come down and held Neji back from delivering the final blow. People waited patiently for the board to flash up, but suddenly, Kirei doubled over and puked. People turned to watch her when she quickly sat up and dashed toward where she thought the bathroom was. She tasted the vomit in her throat and almost chucked vomit again. She opened a door, thought it wasn't a bathroom, it would suffice. She puked and puked until nothing was left. She said, wiping her mouth. Where did that come from? She suddenly felt woozy and passed out. She woke up in the sewer watching a very comical scene. LK was dancing around in a ballerina suit while DK watched. She coughed and both of them snapped their head towards her. Kirei, it seems the transformation is happening faster because of Kyuubi's absence, DK said watching as Kirei sat herself up. Didn't you say I have to fuse with you when we fight the monster? What's going on? LK stopped dancing and transformed back into her plain white dress. Kirei, how many times has that ring glowed since Itachi gave it to you? She asked, surprisingly calm. Kirei frowned. 4 or 3 times I think. Why? That ring glows for every tailed beast that Itachi's organization captured. So far, the 2, 3, 4 and 5th tailed demons have been captured if my assumptions are correct. The next time you see him, ask him. Kirei nodded. So, why am I vomiting? She asked, holding her stomach. Our telekinesis is now being fused with you. You're going to love it. LK began cheering and Kirei rolled her eyes. DK waved her hand and she opened her eyes to see the worried face of Shikamaru. What are you doing here? She asked. Shikamaru helped her stand up and they headed back to the arena. Shino asked me to check on you. You were taking so long. You missed Lee versus Gaara, he said and muttered, troublesome. Kirei coughed a bit more then looked around. As the vomit cleaned up, Shikamaru nodded and she sighed in relief. What happened? He asked. Kirei frowned. I'm not so sure myself. she said laughing sheepishly. They arrived at the arena and saw Lee being carried away in a stretcher and Gaara getting back on his feet. The screen flashed again, Sabaku no Kankuro vs Inuzuka Kiba. Ino snorted loudly causing both Shikamaru and Kirei to turn in her direction. What? I know who's going to win this match, she said smugly folding her arms against her chest. Kirei raised an eyebrow. Really? I thought you wouldn't be paying any attention to anything other than Sasuke, Kirei replied calmly though she was wincing once in a while. Of course Shikamaru noticed but did not say anything about it. Well, I have to get stronger and do this for Sakura, her eyes glazed over and she looked on the verge of tears. Kirei's hand, shaking violently, reached out to pat Ino's back. Begin, Hayate called and Kiba smirked as Akamaru jumped from his perch on Kiba's head. Kiba began performing seals and suddenly Akamaru transformed into Kiba. Kankuro smirked and watched as they began performing seals, something about a taijutsu fighting style. Do you honestly think that your stupid animal characteristics will actually work on me? Kankuro taunted causing Kiba to glare and dash at him on all fours and attacking with his claws. Kankuro easily dodged the swipes made for his head and jumped over the claw heading towards his feet. He needed distance from these guys, they were starting to wear him down. He took large jumps back and saw Kiba pull something out of his pocket and shot a small ball at his feet. Kankuro's vision was blocked because of the large purple smoke that surrounded him. Kiba smelt the air and smirked then launched himself into the cloud and began his assault. Kankuro quickly decided to try and find a way out when the other Kiba clone pushed him back in. Shit, Tamari cursed from up in the stands, Kankuro is in trouble. She started chewing on her bottom lip wondering if her brother was okay. Kirei started swaying side to side until she bumped into Shikamaru who caught her as she was about to collapse. Are you okay? He asked shaking her lightly to keep her from passing out. She nodded with her eyes half-lidded then slowly stood up. I'm fine, she leaned against the railing as she watched the match. Kankuro had an idea and tried to exit the cloud. The Kiba from outside pushed him back in but Kankuro was ready and he pulled him in with him. The smoke began to clear up, and many people watching gasped, there was 3 Kibas in the ring. What the hell? Kiba number 1 said. The third Kiba smirked then punched the second Kiba in the head. There was a loud popping noise as Akamaru's figure was revealed. Akamaru hit the floor hard and was knocked unconscious. Third Kiba grabbed the real Kiba's wrist until he began howling with pain. There was another popping noise and a weird-looking marionette revealed itself. Kankuro came out of the compartment from his stomach chuckling. You gave yourself away when you spoke, have you ever heard of a talking dog? Kiba's eyes widened in understanding and he suddenly dropped to his knees as the pressure from the puppet's hand increased. I am a puppet master and can control this puppet with chakra strings, give up now or Karasu will snap your wrist. To put emphasis on his point, the puppet identified as Karasu began to push his hand back until his finger touched his arm and he screamed. Okay, I give up, and Kankuro replied by controlling Karasu to kick him away. Winner, Kankuro, Hayate declared followed by torrents of coughing. The only fighters left were Kirei and Tamari. Tamari, seeing her brother all right, sighed in relief then looked over at Kirei, smirking, she jumped on her fan then flew down to the arena. Wobbling her way off the railing and down to the arena, Kirei stood and she watched as Tamari stood at a distance from her. Kirei clutched her head in pain and squeezed her eyes shut. Are you able to continue? Asked Hayate and Kirei waved her hand half-heartedly. Hayate shrugged, begin, he called and Tamari smirked. Shall we continue, you weak excuse for a kunoichi, Tamari taunted. Kirei shook her head and stood in her taijutsu stance, left foot pointed and in front of the right, left palm following after the left foot and right hand turned into a fist following the right foot. Tamari pulled out her fan and showed one purple dot. If you see my third star, then it is over, she said smugly. Tamari waved her fan in Kirei's direction causing large wind blades to head straight towards her. She easily performed a one-handed chart wheel to the left then ran towards her with amazing speed. Tamari tried to react but was turned off guard when Kirei flipped upside down. Uzairu clan, spinning bird bick, she called as she spun upside down with legs straight. Tamari quickly shut her fan and used it as a shield. She was being pushed back and she frowned. Who would have thought that she would be this strong? She thought to herself. Kirei flipped back down and watched as Tamari was still skidding back. She stopped about 2 meters away then pulled out her fan this time revealing the second star. She swung it twice, forwards then backwards, and watched as larger blades headed straight towards her, faster than before. Kirei scissor kicked the air, jumping, raising her right knee, then kicking with her left, then kicked with her right. Uzairu clan. Kimura's kick. She called as 3 large, about her seas, wind blades headed straight towards the incoming attack of Temari. Temari growled. She was starting to get annoyed. Are you going to continue, or am I? Kirei asked rather boredly. Temari glared at her. No. Kirei answered her own question, then dashed towards her. Temari revealed the 3rd star, then waved it 3 times, forward, backwards, then forward again, and 6 large blades, slightly longer than Kirei's attack before, headed straight towards her. Kirei stopped running and hurriedly closed her eyes and began chanting. Only 5 seconds before the blades were going to strike. Kirei tried to relax and chant fast enough. This move she was about to do relied on concentration since she couldn't do it fast enough. The first 2 blades hit both of her arms and she flinched. 2 more seconds until the second one. Temari wondered what this girl was doing. She was mumbling something, but it looked like she was standing there accepting it. As the second wave was about to hit her, Kirei shot both hands forward, her legs spread apart. Kimura's mirror, she called out desperately. The second wave of wind blades ricocheted off of an invisible force field in front of Kirei and collided into the third wave of blades coming from behind and cancelled each other out. Kirei panted heavily and blood began to flow freely from Temari's previous attack. You better quit or else you will bleed out, Temari advised, smiling in satisfaction knowing her opponent wouldn't be able to continue the fight. Spectators watched in fascination as the wound glowed white before slowly disappearing. Kirei collapsed to the ground panting as her head began swimming in emotions by the people around her. Not now, she whispered to herself, hoping that her telekinesis wasn't going to fully develop at this very moment. What's going on? When did Kirei get that power? I always thought she was just weak. I must ask about this later. She is proving to be a nuisance. I must eliminate her or turn her to the dark side. Ah, she screamed as thoughts of people surrounding her kept entering her mind. Temari and Hayate were suddenly floating off the ground. Temari began panicking. What the hell? She looked around frantically, wondering where this was coming from. Suddenly, she was violently flown across the room and she hit her head on the wall and passed out. Hayate saw what happened to her, so when he was zooming across the room, he tried with all his might to shield his head and it worked. The force holding him let go and he dropped to his feet. He looked over at Temari and then at Kirei as black and white chakra began to circle around her. Winner, Uzairu Himitsu Kirei, he said, uncertain of his decision. The chakra abruptly stopped and Kirei collapsed. Kirei Pav. I woke up with a splitting headache. What happened? Where was I? I opened my eyes then closed them quickly when the bright light hit them. Too bright, I murmured, then opened my eyes slowly. I noticed that I was not at the exam but in a white hospital bed with white walls and white floors and white ceiling. My eye began twitching. They need to readjust their colors. Glad to see you're up, I heard a lazy voice drawl out beside me. I turned my head to see Kakashi-sensei reading his orange book seated next to Sasuke and Ichiro. I blinked stupidly. How long was I out for? I asked, sitting up against my pillow. Kakashi-sensei shrugged. Not long, just a day. Congratulations on winning. You will be fighting Dosu from Sound at the Chunin exam finals in 1 month, Dosu EH. How am I supposed to go against a guy like that? Even if I haven't used all my just, I still don't have a counter for him. My eyes darted to the bed next to mine and I saw Ichiro quietly reading a book. Why was he so silent? Ichiro, how are you feeling? I asked. He slowly turned towards me and smiled. Okay, I guess. How about you? He countered and I put my finger to my lips. Could be better. He smiled then turned back to his book. I wonder what he's thinking now. I focused on entering his head. Kirei, I want to tell you something but can't in front of everyone else. I frowned. Did I just break into his mind? Well, the doctor says you should be in bed for a while. But I have to ask you something. Kakashi-sensei looked up at me. This must be serious. What was that power you used when you fought against the Sand Nin? I shrugged my shoulders. Couldn't tell you. I was sick. I guess it was a bloodline of some sort, I responded. I do remember what happened against Temari. My telekinesis fully awakened. I guess he wanted to know what the black and white chakra was. Too bad, I am not saying crap. Well, your match is first, so train well. I have to train Sasuke, so we'll be gone for a while. Don't worry, I left a scroll for you and Ichiro. He said cheerfully. I stared dully at the scroll he placed on my lap. I wonder if he really wants to train Sasuke. Council forcing me to play favoritism. This is not fair to the other members of Team 7, I blinked realizing I entered another person's mind again, I have to learn how to control that. I looked up at Kakashi-sensei and gave a smile showing that I understood. He ruffled my hair in return then did the same for Ichiro who waved goodbye as he left the room. Well, since I unlocked the lightning power from my clan, I guess I am going to have to train with my family for a while. He got off the bed and tucked the scroll Kakashi-sensei gave him in his pocket then headed towards me, Kirei. I will stop by once in a while to check up on you and to spar, so rest up. He pats my head then headed out the door, looking back with sad eyes. I sighed, was he really that disappointed in himself? I need to sleep, maybe when I wake up, things will be better. I heard a soft humming noise and my eyes opened. The room was pitch black, but I remembered that the eyes of DK and LK and added chakra to them to be able to see my surroundings. Sitting by my bedside was Itachi, sharing Ganon and blood on his cloak. I gasped then looked worriedly in his eyes. What happened? Are you bleeding? I asked sitting up. His humming stopped and he looked at me and smiled. My heart melted, he looked so damn hot. Cammy, I wish he would just take me now. Someone entered your room when you were asleep. I guess they thought of getting rid of you. Lucky I came here when I did. He leaned forward kissing the top of my head and my stomach began backflips and somersaults. What are you doing here? I asked taking his hand in mine. He pulled me on his lap and held me protectively around the waist. I worked my off-and-asked leader for some time off. I was surprised that he gave me some. How long were you here for? I watched the Chunin exams. He stated simply and my heart began to beat faster. You saw me. I felt his head nod and I blushed although he couldn't see it. I have this fear that Itachi would think that I am weak and he would leave me. I watched you ever since the Forest of Death. I was waiting for the right time to approach you. He rested his head against mine. You could be better. My heart wrapped around in fear, but it was enough for me to see that you were bothered by something. What was it? Narumi, I murmured and Itachi snorted. Do not listen to what the stupid snake Sennin says. He is just trying to fool with your mind. Just remember someone special to you and you will feel alright. I smiled at his comforting words. We soaked in each other's presence for a while until I thought of something. Which tailed beast is next on your list? One-tailed badger or raccoon dog? I always forget what Shukaku is. The boy, Gaara, is his container. After the exam, we are going to be extracting it, Deidara, Sasori and I, he mumbled. I frowned. Why are you going in groups of 3? Although Deidara is smart, he is still immature and weak. Leader wants me to keep a close eye on both of them. Especially Sasori since there is suspicion rising from him working with Orochimaru. I snuggled closer, I was slightly afraid this was a dream, and you? What was the power you used against the demon's sister? Gaara is not a demon, he is a container, I stated firmly. I don't think any container are demons, they are just misunderstood. I knew right now Itachi was smirking and I briefly wondered what he was going to do. I felt soft lips against my cheek. Itachi turned my head towards him and kissed my lips and trailed up and down my neck. When was he this affectionate? That's when it hit me. No mat tttterwhhhhaaaaaatttttud. He is SSS still a con container RRR. I struggled against his kisses. When was the last time I was intimate with the one I love? His kisses stopped. Remember the power I have over you, he murmured in my ear and I shivered. He was teasing. What of the power you used? I need you to promise to not mention this to anyone, not even yourself. I trust Itachi, but I want to be reassured. Who do you take me for? Of course I will keep this between us. I am not even social at base, he whispered in disbelief. I swallowed. I have been chosen to house two beings of great evil and purity, an angel of darkness and an angel of light. The angel of darkness is the one who controls my unhealthy emotions and thoughts. I was violated when I was younger and that angel was created to cope and everything needed balance, so the angel of light was created. Do not say I am crazy, but it's true. It was quiet. I was worried. What will his response be? You were violated, he asked quietly. I know this tone, the tone of rage that was so horrible. It made him calm. I didn't know what to say. How long? Who? When? I gripped his hands around me tighter and I held back tears. I don't like. He turned to face me and I stared into his eyes. Suddenly everything turned black. Kirei, you're awake. Time to train. I winced at the volume of the voice. I immediately knew it was Satsuki. What the hell? I said, looking at her reading a scroll while jumping foot to foot. Your perverted sensei left the scroll. It says to practice chakra control on a hot spring. Come on. She grabbed me and yanked me upright. I was pleased to know that I wasn't wearing a hospital gown, I was actually still wearing my fingerless gloves with the metal plate, my bandages were off my shins, my hair was out, short shorts still intact, my weapons were on the counter near the window and my black tube top was on with the white mini jacket. I detached myself from Satsuki and attached my weapon pouch on my butt. Satsuki waited impatiently and when I was done, she grabbed my hand and we headed out the hospital through the window. It wasn't that high up, just the second floor. Instead of heading towards the hot spring, she headed towards home and I frowned. Why are we going home? I asked and she giggled, ignoring me completely. Some villagers spat at my feet as we walk and I tried my best for it to not let it get to me but it hurt a lot. We finally arrived at home and Himitsu wasn't here but somebody was definitely sitting on the couch. I glanced over at Satsuki who was in complete fangirl mode, giggling, blushing, drooling. I wondered who the hell could make Satsuki act like that. She calmed down for a bit then smiled. He needed a place to stay so I let him crash here, but he insists that he stays in your room. Don't tell Dad though, he will kill me, she pleaded and I nodded to assure her. There was a beeping noise and Satsuki groaned. What's wrong? I asked and she pulled a small black box-like thingy from the hem of her scrub and showed it to me. The Hokage designed these new pagers for people who work in the hospital to be called without using the birds. He's trying to get one made for the ninjas but it costs a lot of money and he hasn't gotten it perfect. The hospital is just using the prototype. She hung her head low and waved then walked out the door. She suddenly paused then shot me a scroll, remember to practice. And she shut the door as she left. I cautiously stepped towards the person on the couch. He seemed to be sleeping. I stood in front of him and was really surprised to see Itachi. I know he was faking sleep and I couldn't help but get ticked. Just a bit so I punched him, and he easily caught my fist. It is wise to never harm a ninja when sleeping, he scolded and I stuck my tongue out at him. He let go of my fist and sat up straight. What are you doing here? What happened last night? I asked sitting across from him. His eyes were closed as he answered me. I put you in a genjutsu and took off, he replied and I stared at him sadly. You're lying, I can tell because you can never look at me in the eye when you lie, I said. I wonder what really happened. I also took off the blood on your clothes, I think you should take a shower then get ready to train, he replied standing up. Where are you going? And why are you here? He frowned. I thought you wouldn't mind to let a missing nin stay here, I instantly rushed to him and gave him a hug. No, that's not what I meant. He chuckled and I let go of him then headed upstairs to bathe. Itachi said he had to get out of the village for a while before anyone notices anything and I followed Kakai-sensei's scroll. First thing was exactly what Satsuki said, hot springs and practice chakra control. So I slipped on another pair of short shorts this time orange, with an orange short sleeve vest and Naruto's jumpsuit top but short sleeved and a black shirt underneath. So, here I am, trying to practice my control on hot water when some stupid old man was giggling like a madman. I had to go on the male side since there was no one there and this guy was peeping right in front of me. I had the perfect idea, all I had to was focus, and maybe I could use some of my telekinesis. I pictured myself lifting the old man and dumping him in the water repeatedly. I took a deep breath and thought long and hard about it. Then he suddenly was lifted into the air, brought to where I was standing on the hot spring, and I dunked him 5 times. Wait a second, I used my telekinesis when I was on the water. Oh yeah, that takes like, so much control. I'm getting better woot. Splash. I guess I spoke too soon. I got out of the water and watched as the old man jumped out and stood on top of it with a thin line of chakra. He was glaring at my wet figure and I glared back. Do you know who I am? He asked and I folded my hands across my chest. Do I care? All I know is that your flames of youth are being used the wrong way, pervert. Says the only female on the male side of the springs. I got so angry at him. I felt my chakra spike up and lash out at him. The old man seemed unfazed until the black chakra touched him. He took a step back and I started to calm down. I started sinking into the water and I quickly applied a steady amount. Why was this harder than walking on cool water? What's your name? I have never seen someone who looks like you around here before. Maybe I should answer him. He is capable of standing on water. Uzairu Himitsu Kirei, what's yours, old man? I asked. His eyebrow twitched. I am not old, I am Jiraiya, legendary Toad Sennin. He made a funny dance and I smiled, finally remembering him. I know you. He smiled, you are known as the weakest of all Sennin. Orochimaru is first then Tsunade then you. I laughed as he almost fell into the water. He suddenly got serious. What was that technique you used on me? How the hell did you dunk me in the water? I should tell him anyway. My eyes are part of a bloodline that allows me, telekinesis. I nodded, approving my excuse. Well, it was sort of true. You're practicing water walking, maybe I can help you. I raised an eyebrow. What would you gain? He frowned. You're right, I want you to gather research for me while I get drunk. I almost fell into the water. This guy was brutally honest. Well, research on something useful, I bet, like how students use kunai. Deal. She doesn't have that much time. After the exams, we have to train her. Echoed an exasperated LK. DK frowned though her eyes were closed. I understand, but that man is here. Do you not see him up in the tree? He is bored, and because of that, he is placing 2 burdens on her shoulders. You are correct, Hikari, we will have to train her soon. How much time does she have left? 5 years maximum. If she could destroy the sand, she will be safe. What do you mean by sand? The hour has sand in it, correct? If she could get rid of that in 5 years, she will not need that man following her around. Do you notice you have 2 different colors of chakra? Jiraiya asked. I was about to punch him. If you're talking about Kyuubi, yes, I have notice. Besides, I can call on it when I want, I replied hotly. Jiraiya smiled. Well, the technique that I will teach you needs a large chunk of chakra, and you might need to call upon the Kyuubi. I nodded as he pulled out a scroll from his back and unrolled it. This is a summoning scroll for toads. Yosh. I will summon toads and use their youth to conquer and vanquish my enemies, for I am Kirei, the greatest kunoichi ever lived. I cried, then I began hugging Jiraiya merrily. He pried me off and scratched the back of his neck. When he noticed that I was calming down, he unrolled the scroll to reveal 2 names, his name and Kazama Arashi. I heard that name before, but I can't remember where, so I stored this for information later. You have to sign your name in blood underneath the last name, but just because you signed it, doesn't mean they will accept you. I nodded, then bit my thumb, drawing blood. I wrote my name neatly, then looked at him, waiting for my next instructions. Here are the seals, and he showed them to me and I quickly followed until I got them down right. A seal slowly appeared on my arm and I looked up at Ero-sennin questioningly. When you wish to summon, bite your thumb and smear blood on the seal, then go through the hand seals I just taught you. I nodded, then did as I was told. There was a big popping noise, then a small orange toad wearing a mini jacket appeared. Yo, he greeted, and my eyebrow began to twitch. Why are you so small? Have your flames of youth having difficulty burning big and strongly? I asked as I pet the little toad. He gave me a bad look and I backed off. Who's this? He asked Jiraiya, and I glared at him. Who does he think he is? Disregarding me like some kind of pile of shit. This would have been Uzumaki Kirei, but she adopted her mom's side of her name. The small toad looked at me with interest. Well, I guess you're my new summoned. Just call me when you want to play, and he poofed back to wherever he came from. I glared at Jiraiya. That was pathetic. Whatever happened to my perfect chakra control? I asked, and he chuckled. That's why you have to use Kyuubi's chakra, he said, and I pouted. I will prove to you that my chakra reserves are enough. I've been doing exercises such as this for all my life. A little hot water and all of a suddenly. Hell no. I bit my thumb again and smeared the seal, then quickly went through the hand seals summoning my chakra. There was a larger plume of smoke, and a gigantic, probably bigger than the Hokage Tower toad was smoking a pipe as I stood on him. I jumped up and down cheering. I summoned a big toad in my second try. Woot. Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? He boomed, seemed he was angry. I looked back down at Ero-sennin and he was sweating bullets. I didn't summon you, she did. He pointed to the top of his head and I stopped jumping and hung off the top of his forehead to stare into his eyes. Don't be silly, a mere genin can't summon me. He laughed and I stomped down on his head and glared. How dare he insult me? Listen here, bub, I summoned you and you will follow me. I have my ways. I yelled angrily at him. I hate being underestimated. He laughed some more. Such rude attitude to the toad boss. And I took a deep breath and calmed down. Okay, I guess we got off on the wrong foot. The little toad seemed to know me as Uzumaki Kirei, so that is my name, I said, trying to be friendly. He blew out a large cloud of smoke from his pipe. I will consider you if you can land a hit on Jiraiya in a spar. My eyebrows raised. This should be easy. He is the weakest of the 3. I smiled, then slid off his back and stood in front of Jiraiya. He was quiet, which unnerved me, but oh well. I decided to take off my gravity seal and I was 10 times faster than I was before. Even if I can't control it, I wouldn't hurt to use speed to my advantage. Jiraiya smirked. Whenever you're ready, kid, I smiled then dashed towards him. I saw the look of shock on his face at my speed and I inwardly cheered. I got close enough and I shot a kick to his ribs. He dodged easily and this continued for several minutes. It was rather annoying throwing punches and kicks and he would just dodge. I backed away, panting and confused. But I am faster, how do you dodge? He smirked again. Experience, I took in those words. Maybe if I wasn't so predictable, I would be able to land a punch. I ran towards him and I stopped right in front of him. He raised an eyebrow as I made a cross-shaped seal. Shadow clone technique, I whispered and a second Kirei popped up beside me. We both went in for a punch on the face and I noticed he was already swaying back so I quickly ducked and punched him in his stomach. He was taken off guard but I guess it was because he marked me as a total idiot and he thought he didn't need to try or, he gave me that win so Big Toad could leave. Big Toad nodded in approval. Well, good match. Next time you call me, bring some sake and we can drink to finalize our deal. I smiled and waved, still panting from earlier and he poofed away. I looked over at a grinning Jiraiya and I raised an eyebrow. What? I asked and he shook his head. Are you going to teach me something else? I asked and he put his hand on his chin. I can teach you the Flying Thunder God technique but you already have speed so I should teach that to you later. The body technique comes later. Rasengan, I don't have equipment with me, AHA. He said triumphantly. I jumped since it was unexpectedly. He circled around me and stopped when he was behind me and he began sifting through my hair and I felt very uncomfortable. Arrow Sennin, what are you doing? I asked politely just to show how weird this was. He stopped then stood in front of me. You have your mom's hair, silky smooth. This technique will be harder to master. Let me see your seal, maybe using the Kyuubi's chakra will help the technique. I lifted up my shirt and showed the seal. He did a few hand seals then his fingertips glowed blue. He touched my seal and I doubled over in pain. I stood up slowly and I glared at him. That hurt, and he smiled. Now you can access the Kyuubi's chakra. Now let's get this technique down packed. It helps if you have long hair. Training was long with Arrow Sennin. I learned how to make my hair spiky and wrap around me protectively. Arrow Sennin said he had a meeting with the council so I decided to stay under the tree we trained underneath. It was weird that he gave me two techniques and I mastered them both with and without the Kyuubi's chakra. If LK didn't heal me when I got tired, I would be sleeping now. The sun was setting and it was a real beautiful sight. My vision wavered for a bit until something dirty, burnt and brown stood in front of me. I looked up, seeing the dead gray color of hair and eyes and rotting skin of this man. He gave me a smile. Surprisingly, his teeth were in good condition. Hello Narumi, he murmured and I knew he was going to do something. What do you want? I asked trying to sound braver than I felt. He crouched down beside me and smirked. Are you afraid of me? He rested his hand on my cheek. His hands were so cold, I wondered if he was alive. Somebody's trying to play tough. He laughed a bit like a playful child and removed his hand from my cheek. I glared at him. What do you want? I said sternly, hoping he got the message that I don't want him here. My name is Yami, I would like to help you control DK and LK's powers. It seems they are mere too much for a mortal like you. He grinned while I was ready to punch his face in. Don't worry, when you fuse, you won't be human anymore. His childlike laughter made me shiver. What do you gain out of helping me? I asked. I know it was useless to be on guard when he could end my life with a blink, but old habits die hard. As I said before, when you fuse with your others, you will have power rivaling mine. You will become in words, a little sister, which is fantastic for me. I have a little sister who can take over when I want a break. He sighed heavily. What really annoys me is that my little sister is an idiot. My right eye twitched. Who the hell does he think he is? Wait, I take that back, but still. I want to hurt him for calling me that. Whoa, I think I need anger management with all these violent unhealthy thoughts. Just think, if I train you after you fuse, you will be able to face the evil that is to come. He sat cross-legged in front of me. Come to think of it, I should train you now. Was my intelligent response. He stared at me. It must suck to have dead gray eyes like that. It was cool and creepy, depends if you're sadistic like Orochimaru. He poked my forehead and I blinked. I realized that we are no longer under the tree, but sitting in water in a sewer. I stood up quickly and looked around frantically. The son of Shinigami and Kami, tell me, how are our fathers doing? DK echoed. I turned to her and she smiled, eerily. I guess they are related. Yami stood up and gave a hug to DK. Wow, they are really related. They were created by me, but they are here because I have to restore some balance. Okay, wait, let me break this down. So, I began, DK and LK were created to maintain balance in myself, a quick nod from everyone else, and to also fuse with me to vanquish a demon coming that is stronger than Kirei. Everyone nodded again. Now Yami here, is my, well, DK and LK's older brother, since he was created I guess to move from dimension to dimension and restore balance where Kami and Shinigami cannot, and they both nodded and I sighed, I get it now. Yami-chan. That echo would leave me deaf for days. There was heavy splashing being made, then sounded like somebody was skidding. LK appeared from around the corner wearing a banana suit. She jumped on Yami's back and began cuddling with his face. His face remained impassive and I couldn't help but laugh. She jumped off of him and sat down obediently waiting for orders. DK followed suit, but her face showed no emotions. Yami grinned down at them, then looked back at me. I think I am going to give back some of your powers. I will leave Kirei with the eyes. They nodded and I didn't really understand what he meant. Yami pointed his clawed finger at me and energy coming from me formed into a ball in front of his finger. He turned to DK and LK and the ball separated and divided the energy between them. Yami waved his hand and a mirror appeared in front of me, and the first thing I noticed was my blonde hair. It was back. The second thing I noticed was that I had eyes, not empty voids. I actually had eyes. But they weren't the same crystal blue color like before. The left eye reminded me of a Hyuga, except there was no tint of pink. My right eye wasn't yin-yang either, just black, pitch black, but I was happy. Thank you, Ayami-sama, I said, unsure of how to call him. He laughed like a child, then smiled. It would be bad if you were already halfway fused and did not know the extent of your powers. For this month, I think I will teach you how to use your blade you call Tatsuki, Dawn or Moon. I will also teach you how to use your speed and telekinesis. Goodbye, little ones, and when Kyuubi wakes up, tell her that she should do what she wants to do before it is too late. I blinked and we were back underneath the tree. He pulled out a scroll and unrolled it. This is a summoning scroll. You can summon angels to demons. It all depends on your emotions you are feeling. I signed my name in blood underneath nobody else and I frowned. Am I the first to sign this? The first mortal. Until you fuse with your others, you will become like me. I nodded and a playful look came across his features. We will learn about your telekinesis. I need you to be able to meditate for 3 hours straight, and I snorted, this should be easy. I sat in position and closed my eyes. Clear my mind. I felt a jolt of electricity and I jumped. You mortals are all the same. To think I thought you would be different and repent for the insult I have received. Do not fall asleep, or another of your precious people will be harmed. I swallowed then nodded, I will do this if it takes forever. I was so tired. As soon as training was done, I teleported to my bed and closed my eyes and fell, back facing the mattress. I landed on something, but I don't think it was my bed since it made a grunting noise. I sat up and looked at Itachi lying on my bed. I blinked. What do I do in a situation like this? I stared at his figure for a while before realizing I lost my tiredness and headed to the shower. I came out minutes later and he was still in the same position. I shrugged my shoulders. He's cool like that. I changed into a black shirt and I slipped onto the bed without trying to wake him. I lay down on my side and nearly jumped when arm wrapped around mine. This is rape, you know. I'm like 12. My birthday is coming up, but still, he snuggled closer to me. Shut up and sleep, and I complied. He dragged the large broadsword against the ground. He was heavily wounded, a large slash across his chest. He growled, that stupid little girl and her wind weapon. Her name will forever be etched in his mind. He needed souls and fast or the sword would start feasting on him. He saw a large gate and 2 people outside guarding it. He felt a pulse, another pulse, and his sword began to twitch. So, that means that the wretched sword is here. He looked up at the gate. The souls in front of it will have to do before he can obtain the soul of the wielder of the legendary blade. But why was Talum so worried when he mentioned his intentions with the wielder? He would never know, since she's probably bleeding to death. He couldn't eat her soul, it was just too pure. Besides, a part of his sanity developed a liking to the girl. The gate was a couple of meters ahead and the guards began calling for him to stop. Maybe they have power wherever they come from, but they don't have power over him. He could pretend to want to join the village to not cause suspicion, then eat their souls and kill the wielder and be done with the sword. That seemed like a plan. Halt. You are now on Fire Country territory and entering the hidden village of Leafs, a ninja village. Stare your purpose and show ID, the first guard said. He had a bandage that went from his left cheek, across his nose to his right cheek. The man with the large sword and wound collapsed to one knee and began panting heavily. Kitetsu. He needs medical attention. We can't ask him for his ID and stuff. Scolded Izumo, the guard wearing his forehead protector like a bandana. Kitetsu sighed. If his partner kept being this kind to newcomers, then Konoha was bound for an invasion. But, nope, I don't want to hear it. Now help me carry this guy to the hospital. He didn't even look human anymore. Those bat-like wings were thick and looked more like large hands on his back. His hair, a dirty silver color, and his eyes, they looked mad. Like a crazed murderer. Has it come down to this? Is this really what he wanted? I have to do something. Move, she yelled in her mind. She was so scared. Was this the Sasuke she met when she was younger? She noticed his body turning back to normal and it fueled her courage. She ran towards him and enveloped him in a hug. Tears freely fell from her face as she held so tight. She was too scared to lose him. I can't lose someone else. Yami was right, it never does well to anger a god. Kirei, let go, he demanded calmly and quietly. Her eyes grew larger. Does she really mean nothing to him? Sasuke, I will not let you go. If you have to kill me, do it. I promised. She chopped out a sob. I promised him I would never let anything happen. I will protect you, I will watch you. I will be the one to make you smile. Please, don't go. Sasuke listened as the girl began to cry harder and his shirt was being drenched. He did not care. He had some place to be at this time of day and she is just a mere obstacle in his way. He brought his hands to the one around his waist and pried them off. Kirei, I will only say this once, leave here. Do not force me to do something I will never do. Kirei stared at his back. Was this it? Please, Itachi will never forgive me. You don't understand. She yelled. It was quiet for a while. A wind blew which added to the large tension filling the air. Sasuke frowned then turned slowly towards her. Did you say, Itachi? And Kirei knew that she made a mistake. I woke up sweating and panting. Was that a dream I just had? It seemed so real. It felt so real. Sasuke, it looked like he was leaving, but for what? Why was I so desperate to keep him here? Was it because of the promise I made or was it because I needed him more than I thought I did? Maybe Sasuke and I are best friends, we both suffered a similar past so we always had some sort of connection and when he leaves, then I will be all alone. I looked around the room and realized I was in my bed. I looked down on my left and Itachi looked so peaceful. He seemed to be at peace with his chest rising and falling. I smiled. As long as he was by my side, I will be able to get through everything. I love you, I whispered as I bent forward to brush a strand of hair from his face. My fingers lingered on his cheeks. I love you more than anything, I murmured as I kissed it. I noticed his eyes were opened, the Sharingan stared back at me and I blinked. You know, the more you keep that on, the more you lose your sight. He grinned. Good morning to you too, and I giggled. There was a knock on my door and before I had a chance to say come in or not, the door was opened and Himitsu walked in, wearing his doctor clothes and I froze. Kirei-chan, time to wake, he stared blankly at us while we lay on the bed. We stayed like this for a minute until Itachi murmured, Mangekyo Sharingan, and Himitsu collapsed on the ground. My mouth was open and I probably looked like a gaping fish. I turned to Itachi and his Sharingan was off and he was fluffing his pillow. My eyebrow twitched. Why would you do that? I had to restrain from yelling. My dad walks through the door and you put him in a coma. He turned to me. I cannot have people knowing I am here. He proceeded to close his eyes and fall back on his pillow and I groaned out loud. He says that like it is the most obvious thing in the world. I stood up and went to his figure on the ground and felt his pulse. He was out cold. I looked back at Itachi and glared. What are we going to do now? I asked and he grunted and another Itachi clone poofed right next to me wearing nothing but the black fishnet shirt he wears underneath his cloak and his black boxers. I blushed, and he bent forward and hoisted Himitsu on his shoulders. I headed down the hallway towards Himitsu's room and the clone followed. I opened the door and Itachi clone stripped his clothes and put him in bed as if he just woke up. He turned to me and smiled and I raised an eyebrow. He pointed to the full-length mirror on the closet door and I looked and saw that my t-shirt was hanging off my shoulders and revealing a bit of my chest but not a lot. I laughed nervously and covered it up and I blushed. Cute, and I looked down at the ground and blushed deeply. I knew the cone was approaching and I couldn't help but fidget. He put his hands on my cheeks and tilted my head so I was facing him. He leaned down so close, until our lips were centimeters away and he smirked. But I don't think I can wait until you're legal, and he kissed me, oh god, oh Kamuru, oh Kami, oh my goodness. I was going to faint, it was filled with lust and I couldn't kiss back because he was nibbling on my bottom lip. He pulled away and while I was standing up, I swayed back and forth, I was just so dizzy. Hamana, and I fell on my butt. The clone poofed away and I stayed in my daze as I tried to stand up and head into the bath to take my shower. Something's wrong with her, I heard Ino whisper to Satsuki. I went to the training grounds with Satsuki because I was still in a daze and the rookies were there. Well, everyone except Sakura, Sasuke and Ichiro. I stopped blindly punching the log and began punching the blob in front of me. I know, does she realize that she's punching Kiba? He just got out from the hospital. Satsuki whispered back. Though I could hear them, I couldn't understand them. The blob formed into Itachi and I blushed, is he seriously here? Itachi, I whispered. I felt woozy and I began to sway side to side before I collapsed. I suddenly felt arms wrap around me but I was too wrapped up in my own world to know who was holding me. I still can't believe what a pervert he is. I felt pain on my cheek and I shook my head. I noticed a worried-looking Shino holding me. I sat up and looked around and noticed I was in the training grounds. I guess you could say I was alert, thanks. No problem, Shino said and I smiled and jumped up. Okay, Kirei is ready to train. And I proceeded to try and meditate. I had 3 days to master this before Yami came back so I might as well make the best of it. Kin, is the guy that Izumo let in the one who killed Sakura? Did he just battle Tamari and lose? That was kinda hilarious. Me, of course if I answered your first question that would be a spoiler but whatever. Yes. He killed Sakura, he didn't battle Tamari, he battled Talim and she's bleeding to death somewhere else. The way I answered that made Talim look weak lol. Toby, I wanted to see his reaction though. Me, I will show you his reaction. I dunno if it will be funny but you'll get to know about it though. Nuru, was it Orochimaru who thought that? Me, it was but there will be more on that later. Shugo of Hack, why was Kirei feeling woozy? Was it because of the kiss? And did Shino hear her say, Itachi? Me, it was because of the kiss. If a horny clone of the one you loved kiss you, wouldn't you be distracted? LMAO I know I would. Even if Shino did hear her say his name, it wouldn't matter. He was more focused on helping her wake up than figuring out who put her in that sack, that comes after. Areo Jet, didn't Lee and Gaara fight already? Me, during the pre-matches. Well, I forgot the order of the match so I just made it so when Kirei came back, she saw the result, Gaara standing up and Lee on a stretcher. Hey, did Itachi use his Mangekyo Sharingan to see what Kirei didn't want to say? I mean the part where he asked her where she get the power to beat Tamari. Me, yes he did. He wanted to know who she was violated by and what happened but she was scared and uncomfortable telling the man that she loved she wasn't pure anymore. Thank you. Shadowser over 5. To Fangal, Diablo and Mira-san, there will be something special in this chapter concerning your reviews so hopefully you will like it. To reviewers, thank you and never stop pressing that button and typing. Kyubi thoughts, Dark and Light Kirei. Dark Kirei, DK. Light Kirei, LK. Chapter 9, Slight OCC. Flashback, when you walk away, you don't hear me say please. Oh baby, don't go. Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go. You're giving me too many things. Lately you're all I need. You smiled at me and said, don't get me wrong I love you. But does that mean I have to meet your father? When we are older you'll understand. What I meant when I said, no. I don't think life is quite that simple. Kirei felt someone holding her hand and stopped singing and opened her eyes. It was Itachi. It took him a while to get warmed up with her but she didn't care how long it took, as long as he opened up. Your voice, he murmured in fascination. He looked at her in her eyes and couldn't help but feel so warm, your voice is beautiful. It lures me to you. Don't stop. Kirei smiled and closed her eyes then continued. When you walk away, you don't hear me say please. Oh baby, don't go. Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go. The daily things like this is that and what is what. That keep us all busy or confusing me. That's when you came to me and said, wish I could prove I love you. But does that mean I have to walk on water? When we are older you'll understand. It's enough when I say so. And maybe some things are that simple. When you walk away, you don't hear me say please. Oh baby, don't go. Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go. Hold me. Whatever lies beyond this morning is a little later on. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all. Nothing's like before. When you walk away, you don't hear me say please. Oh baby, don't go. Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go. Hold me. Whatever lies beyond this morning is a little later on. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all. Nothing's like before. Hold me. Whatever lies beyond this morning is a little later on. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all. Nothing's like before. It was quiet after the ending of the song. It made Itachi wonder. Kirei, why would you choose to sing a sad song like that? Itachi asked as Kirei opened her eyes. Her face was calm as she turned to face the empty field they sat in. It reminds me of you. It is something I would love to say to you but can't bring myself to. She took in a deep breath and Itachi frowned. Why would you be scared? Are you afraid of my reaction? He asked. Kirei's arms began to shake. He knew his answer just by her reaction. I am leaving back to Konoha tomorrow, she whispered, trying not to let tears pour down her face. My time here is done, considering the fact that I am able to complete anything they throw at me. I just want to sing you something before I go. She chooses that moment to look at him in the eyes. Itachi looked calm, as if he was expecting this. I love you, and Kirei blinked dumbly. Her mouth opened and closed and Itachi smiled. I love you. I spend my time with you because I love you, because I like seeing the smile on your face. Yes, you are only 10 yet I am 6 years older. I still want to be near you forever and ever. You thought this would be our last encounter because of my attitude, but it will never be. I will always be there for you, he finished. Kirei grew angry and she gave him a quick slap to the back of his head which caught him off guard. Why couldn't you tell me this before? I spent many a sleepless nights wondering about you. Tears fell freely from her face and Itachi brought his thumb to wipe away her tears. Don't cry, you make me feel like a failure, and he leaned forward and gave her a kiss. Flashback end. No way am I going to do something so disgusting. You better be joking. I uttered those words with dead seriousness. To think he considers me, a female, to do the task he was asking. Oh, how low is he? I am ashamed to even be near this man. Come on, he begged. I promise I won't tell anyone that you're doing it. It will be our little secret, and besides, my research was part of the deal. Ero Sennin was holding onto my leg begging. This would have been cool. Imagine a Sennin begging you. It makes you feel like you have power if it weren't for the reason of his actions. I glared down at him. I will not peek on woman. Do you forget that I am a woman myself? Ero Sennin coughed. You are not a woman, you are a preteen, so deal with it. My right eyebrow twitched violently. It was part of the deal, so you have to do some research, or better yet, help me with my research. I sighed. It was true, I had to do it. I mean, he did teach me the techniques. Plus, I can never go back on my promises. I nodded in agreement and Ero Sennin began jumping up and down. I will be right back, I said, and he nodded eagerly. I dashed out of the forest and headed straight to the academy. Konohamaru has this pervert technique he came up with that he used on me during our fight. If he can teach it to me, I wouldn't have to peek on woman. Finding Konohamaru was easy. He was right outside eating lunch with Moegi and udon. I smiled and he saluted. Boss, what brings you here? Have you come to teach us some techniques? He asked, getting giddy. I smiled apologetically. No, not today, but I promise after the exams I'll teach you guys something so cool, Iruka won't be able to beat you. They whopped at the same time, causing me to giggle. Adding chakra to my eyes so I can decipher the technique. Konohamaru, can you do the sexy technique against guys? He nodded, then stood up and performed the seals. The where was a poof of smoke, and lo and behold, a naked girl who looked like Konohamaru was standing there blowing kisses. I studied the technique with my eyes, and when I was done, waved, then dashed back to where the Sennin was waiting while screaming a thank you to Konohamaru. I walked into the forest with dread and embarrassment. Why does this feel so wrong? I walked towards Ero Sennin and I hurriedly performed the seals for the technique, sexy technique. And an older version of myself naked, with smoke covering my female parts, and he instantly began drooling, then pulled out a pen and paper from seemingly nowhere and began to take notes. Itachi was in a good mood. He sneaked into Kirei's kitchen to get something to eat and found dango and Pocky, his two favorite snacks. He was entertained when Himitsu woke up thinking he slept in and held back laughter as he dashed around the house looking for things. Itachi didn't even need to mask his presence since the doctor was too absorbed in getting to the hospital. So now, he was dead set on seeing the one he loved training, kind of like a surprise visit. Finding her odd chakra signature and that of another, he quickly body flickered there. I felt so uncomfortable while Arrow Sennin circled around me and ogled my body. Maybe it was time for me to switch back. Anyo, I feel very uncomfortable, I murmured as he came face to face with me. He frowned. Why would you consider this as training? He grinned and I couldn't take this anymore, so I put my hands in the cancel hand seal and Arrow Sennin lunged at me. I backed up and tripped over a protruding tree root and fell on my ass. Arrow Sennin came tumbling after and landed on top of me. God, he was heavy. I tried to move but his weight wouldn't let me. His cheeks were pink and his nose was bleeding, he was in pervert land. I heard a poof and I turned to the noise and noticed Itachi staring at me. He appeared and stared down on me as I blushing embarrassedly. I was underneath the pervert of all perverts, naked, for goodness sakes. The illusion wavered and an audible poof made itself known as I changed back into me, with clothes of course. I tried to push the Sennin off of me but he was like a log. Itachi's eyebrow twitched and he growled out, "Let me help," and the color instantly left Arrow Sennin's face. Itachi stomped over and gave a punch to the man's face, causing him to roll on his back beside me. Without a second thought, I stood up and dashed to a safe distance away from both men. Itachi kicked him in his ribs a couple of times, then jumped on top of him, punching him in the face. Over and over and over again his fist rained down on poor Arrow Sennin. Itachi didn't stop even when blood appeared. I was worried. The love of my life was beating the shit out of my sensei in the middle of a forest. Wouldn't this be a funny story to tell my grandchildren? Bad. It's not time to think about things like that. I think it's time I held Itachi back, so I cautiously approached him and held back both arms. I literally dragged him off of Jiraiya, kicking and screaming. "Let me go," he roared, "let me at him." He kicked out his foot, hitting the bleeding man on the ground's crotch, and another kick to his ribs where a loud crack was heard. I only let him go when I was at least 10 meters away from the bleeding Sennin. Itachi began to calm down, so I let him go and rubbed his back. "Let it go," I said, trying to calm him down. A minute passed as we just stared at the unconscious Sennin on the ground. When I thought it was time to go, Itachi's anger flared and he ran towards his body and began kicking the shit out of him. "I should telepathically erase you, brain. You want some? Oh, that's right, you're unconscious," he hollered. I stared at the scene in awe. This was one of those once in a blue moon times that emotion will explode from Itachi. Come to think of it, it's pretty cool to have your boyfriend beat the crap out of one of the legendary three. Who can ever say that they witnessed that? With Nightmare, you're awake. It was more of a statement than a question. The man stirred on his bed and darted around the room looking for his large broadsword. "If you're looking for that thing you call a weapon, it is being held in a facility," a cold voice rang through the room. The man lying down on the bed looked to his right and noticed a large man wearing a bandana with the forehead protector on it in a long dark trench coat. His face was grim. It looked like a smile was foreign on his face. "My name is Ibuki," he answered the unasked question, and the man on the bed sat up and studied. "When will I receive my sword?" he asked. He knew the sword couldn't last long without feeding on his energy. It was only a matter of time before it lured its next victim. "You have to answer some questions first. I would like to know the name of my prisoner," he asked, adding a smirk. The man on the stretcher decided to entertain these people and use them for his own needs. "Nightmare. I know nothing else. Hokage meeting. Danzo, you cannot expect us to sit around here and wait for the Kyuubi to get stronger. Do something." An angry councilman banged his fist on the table. Sarutobi sighed. He was getting too old for this. "Danzo cannot do anything, nor can the rest of you," Sarutobi stated calmly. He averted his gaze from the round table to the shocked faces of some of the council members. "The only way for Kirei to be banished is if she is in cahoots with several of our enemies, committed treason, killed an innocent, or unleashed the Kyuubi on us all, and I can assure you that none of the above will ever occur. This meeting is adjourned." With that, he stood up and left the tense room. Many people were left in shock save for Danzo. He was grinning like a mad clown. Danzo was the last person in the room and he instantly stood up and turned to his left. "Did you hear that? It seems I may have use for you after all. Now go and complete the mission. The banishment of the demon depends on it." A boy a little older than Kirei's age appeared from behind a curtain. He nodded and disappeared, leaving Danzo with the biggest smile. "With Kirei, Itachi, you realize that Arrow Sennin now knows where you are. You do realize that you are royally I said, trying to keep my voice calm, cool and collected. Itachi snorted and ran his hand through his hair. He looked back at Ero Sennin on the ground and smirked. As long as he doesn't touch what is mine, he said smugly, and I couldn't help but blush. Maybe I should just leave Ero Sennin out here. I also think I should find Sasuke and Ichiro. I haven't seen them in a while. Kirei, go back to training. I will be out for some time, all right. I nodded sadly. That is our only option, to make Itachi hide out until things get cleared out. I have an idea. Itachi-kun, do you have some sake? He looked at me curiously, then opened up a scroll and a bottle of sake came out of nowhere. He shot it at me and I caught it. Then I proceeded towards Ero Sennin and I poured the whole bottle on him to seem as if he were drunk. I turned to Itachi with the empty bottle and passed it back to him. You need to lay low, okay? He nodded and body flickered away and I sighed. I should get back to my scheduled training. 2 weeks before exams. Well, Kirei, I think that's all I can teach you. I thought it would take longer, but you seem to have mastered everything. But always remember, you need to meditate every day in order to keep this calm maturity. I will see you when it is time for you to fuse, Yami said emotionlessly before he became nothing. I smiled sadly. It was fun when it lasted, but now, what do I do? Itachi still hasn't shown up yet and Ero Sennin is in the hospital smelling of sake. Sasuke is training to fight. Ichiro dropped off the face of the earth and Satsuki and Himitsu have an all night at the hospital. The sun's about to set. Maybe I should go and watch it. I began walking out of the forest towards the Hokage monument. It is a well-known fact that the best place to watch the sunset is the Yondaimi's head. I body flickered there and walked to the edge where I could dangle my feet and waited for the show to start. It started to make me think, do I hate the fourth? He did seal Kyuubi in me. He did cause me to get beaten, raped, discriminated and detested, but if I hadn't been beaten to the point my skin was having trouble staying on, I would have never met my family, my dad, Himitsu and Talam, who introduced me to my mom's side of the family. But whatever happened to my real dad? Why do some people refer to me as Narumi? Hello, I jumped at the voice. I didn't even notice somebody was here with me. When did he get here? I studied the boy. He looked so much like Sasuke, the same eyes, same skin color, same everything save for the hairstyle. This boy had his hair short, barely touching his shoulders. But that wasn't the only difference. He had an aura of emptiness. Like he felt nothing and it bothered me. He must be unhappy. Hello, when did you get here? I asked, holding my chest to catch my breath. The boy gave an empty smile. A few moments ago. Why, are you alarmed? He sat closer to me and I knew something was up. I just had to play my cards right and maybe I could figure out what his aim is. His smile never left and I looked at the sun, which was now setting. Ah, so beautiful, it's breathtaking, isn't it? I asked. I turned to see his reaction, but he was frowning. Why would he be confused? What's the matter? I'm having trouble understanding what emotion you are feeling. The book I read said nothing about this. It only mentioned happiness, sadness and anger. What are you feeling? I didn't know how to answer that. What is your name? Sai. Well, Sai, I guess I feel relaxed. What we are witnessing now is nature at one of its finest. To think, some people cannot even experience something romantic and wonderful. I love watching the sun and the moon. To me, they are beacons of mystery and affection. I finished smiling. I do have a very large fascination towards the sun and moon, and when I can share my insight, it just makes things a lot better. Sai didn't respond, but I didn't mind. When everything is quiet, it's peaceful. I felt someone hold my hand and I glanced back at Sai. What? This feels good. I have never felt this way, nor was I aware that I am capable of feeling this way. Thank you, he said calmly, and I wondered about his background. It seems that he cannot feel emotions, or is it just that he doesn't understand what he feels? Maybe the rest of the month won't be so boring when I have a new objective, help Sai understand emotions. It doesn't sound too hard. We stayed in silence holding hands until stars came out. I sighed. That was beautiful. Sai, won't your parents and friends be worried that you are not home? I asked, still gazing ahead. My parents are dead and I have no friends. He stated it so simply as if it were nothing, and I almost dropped from the monument. What is a friend? He asked and I could only blink dumbly. How do you not know what a friend is? A friend, it will be hard to explain. I'd rather show you and let you experience it. He nodded in understanding. Say, why don't you become my friend? I asked, smiling. He seemed lonely. Okay, Narumi is my new friend. He gave a fake smile and I frowned. Who is Narumi? You are, it says on your file that I read. He frowned. Did I do something wrong? No, just call me Kirei. Anyo, why do you give fake smiles? The book also said that giving smiles is a nice way to greet someone and to befriend them, yet I do not understand what a friend is, he said. I scratched the top of my head in thought, trying to figure out a way to explain it. Now that we are friends, we have to help each other through troubled times and spend time with each other. I added cheerfully. Sai smiled again. That sounds good. I like that idea. I gave him a nod, then stood up, bringing him with me. How come I haven't seen you around here before, Sai-kun? I was finally granted permission to interact with others. I sweat dropped. Let me take you home. I have to head to the hospital afterwards anyway, so it won't bother me. He nodded, then let go of my hand and began jumping of the mountain and landed on a roof, and I followed after him. I caught up with him and noticed he glowed in the night light, reminded me of Itachi when he slept. If I defeat you, I have a better chance of fighting Sasuke. An angry voice called out. I stopped moving and looked at the roof in front of us while Sai kept going. I turned to Sai and he looked back at me curiously, and I pointed across the roof. There was a boy wearing a large haystack on his back and a boy sitting on the top of the roof with a peanut-shaped gourd. He raised his hands and sand covered the boy, and fear for the life of Mr. Haystack surrounded me, so I quickly body flickered to the guy wearing the gourd and gave him a punch to his jaw. He went soaring across a couple of rooftops, and I immediately turned to Mr. Haystack. Are you okay? I asked, concerned for his well-being. His forehead protector glistened in the moonlight and the musical note indicated that he was from sound. You little wench. I will be the one to defeat him so I can fight the Uchiha. He dashed towards me and a vein appeared on my head. Is this what I get for saving your life? I yelled, but it fell on deaf ears, for Mr. Haystack, who I just noticed as Dosu, came towards me and thrust his metal arm thingy. Dear Kami, why can't people just use normal ninja weapons? I evaded the attack by ducking and swept his feet from under him. He backflipped away and it allowed me to get into my stance, N. Chun-Li from Street Fighter. I glared at him. Listen here, I do not wish to fight you. I mean, for goodness gracious, I helped you escape the sand of doom. I at least deserve a thank you. He laughed at me and I took a step forward, then felt ringing in my ears and spat out blood. I could feel him smirking and my right eyebrow twitched. I was dizzy. Standing before me were two Dosus and I squinted my eyes to see clearer, but it didn't really help. Which was the real Dosu? I should hit both of them just in case. I needed an attack that could hit multiple enemies at once, but will I be able to concentrate hard enough for me to do it? I made 10 hand seals, Uzairu clan, Hurricane Whirlwind, and shot my hands forward. I hoped nobody notices how sloppy I performed this technique. I watched the real Dosu and a fake Dosu try to dodge the attack, but it circles around you and shoots you up into the air. I decided to take a page from Lee and Sasuke's book and did the first kick for the Shadow Leaf dance, which launched the opponent in the air. I jumped after the first Dosu 1 and 2 with 5 clones. A kick to the ribs, head, ass, back, face, and then an axe kick, causing Dosu 1 and 2 to tumble down. Kirei-san, you defeated him so easily? Sai asked as he jumped beside me. I looked over at him and saw two Sais standing side by side, and I began to sway because of the dizziness. I guess I wasn't fully recovered from his sound attack. Why do you guys say it like you couldn't believe it? It was very sloppy, no form, no nothing, just reckless brawling, they both answered with seriousness. I heard a loud groaning noise and saw a weak Dosu standing up and holding onto his knees for support. I blinked a couple of times and noticed both Dosus fused together, and I smiled. My vision and dizziness must be getting healed by LK or Kyuubi. I don't go down so easy. He called out and I raised an eyebrow. I closed my eyes and imagined Tsuki in my hands, and when I opened them, my blade was glistening in the moonlight. Dosu charged forward, lunging his metal arm toward me, and I parried with my blade, causing him to stumble back, and I made a horizontal swipe across his chest. He clutched it painfully and a sharp pain appeared in my ears again before it vanished. I guess LK and Kyuubi found a way for me to be immune to his techniques. It's over, Dosu, you are clearly outmatched, I said calmly, hoping he got the hint. He growled before coughing something up. He ignored his slash on his chest and removed his haystack from his back and revealed 2 more metal thingies similar to the one on his arm. He laughed as he slipped one on his leg and one on his arm and got into a kickboxing stance, furrowing his brows once in a while, probably because of the blood coming from his wound. Kirei-san, allow me to finish him off, Sai said from beside me. I grinned. That won't be necessary, the fight just got interesting. I headed straight towards him, knowing that what I was doing is stupid and reckless, but I just needed to test his abilities. I made 5 clones, then made a 6th one pop up behind Sai hiding. I made a replacement with myself and a clone and waited for the information to flood into me. 5 minutes later, my head began to have small migraine, but that was because of the mental strain. I performed a couple of seals and ended with the rat, and black chakra became my second skin. This move was taxing and tiring, and I could only kept it up for a couple of minutes. Darkness release, silent kill, I murmured, then entered the darkness surrounding Dosu. I watched as he hopped left and right until he finally got annoyed. Come on, I didn't pull out the big guns for nothing. He yelled and I smirked. He had an opening. I emerged from the darkness using my speed to its full advantage, then quickly tried to remember where the knockout position was from the anatomy book I read. I remembered, but I didn't have enough time to mold chakra, so I hit it as hard as I could. He collapsed to his knees semi-conscious, and I knew I had to work on my strength. He dropped to the ground and I sighed in relief knowing the battle was over, then let my guard down. I felt something was off and quickly created an explosive shadow clone and replaced myself with it. Dosu made a sweeping kick and hit the clone, but there was a 5-second delay. Run, I yelled, trying to warn him. I just wanted to knock him out, but his position wouldn't allow him to do so. He had to be standing up on his knees or feet. He turned his head towards me and I covered my mouth as I watched my clone explode, letting a blinding white light right through. It rained blood. I bet you're wondering how I felt when I saw blood spraying everywhere and Dosu's arm and leg flying through the sky. I felt horrible. Maybe my physical strength sucked, but my ninjutsu strength is too much. I dunno how this might have happened. It was only supposed to knock him out, but his head was too close to the focus point of the explosion. I felt horrible. I felt lower than dirt. I killed someone after I saved them. Maybe I didn't save them at all. I'm a horrible person. Kirei-san, are you okay? I felt somebody touch me and I jumped and moved from the person's reach. I looked at Sai in his eyes, yet I didn't feel anything coming from them. You look sad. Why don't you go home and get some rest? I wasn't clear of my surroundings. To be frank, I didn't care about anything. I just felt so low. I killed someone because of a careless mistake. I am smart, but why couldn't I use another clone? Was it because I was too sure of my plan? Am I getting too cocky? I think I need to go away for a while, maybe never come back. Kirei's mind. Dark energy filled the air and circled around a cocoon made of black wings. There was too much dark energy in the air and it caused the surrounding water to evaporate and nearby mold to die. One of the black wings opened and revealed a sweating DK. Too much. She looked exhausted and worried at the same time. She looked around and saw a glowing light in the distance and crawled over to it while the dark energy kept circling around her and coming in. Too much, she cried out as a large ball of darkness slammed right into her back. She stopped moving for a couple of minutes. She started twitching as small amounts of energy made its way through her body. DK? Asked an uncertain LK. She had heard the cries and felt the energy in this area and wondered what was going on. DK rolled onto her side with much difficulty and gasped before her telepathy began. Too many dark emotions. I'm absorbing it and it's too much. She needs to keep us balanced. She needs to think of good things or my power will override yours and I will absorb you and you shall be no more. She groaned as a large ball of energy went through her stomach. She will become evil. LK began shaking. How long do I have? 2 weeks, at this rate. With Kirei. Sai hoisted me up and I leaned on his shoulder. I was still very distraught and confused. Images of his body flying came to my mind and I turned pale thinking about it. You are overreacting. You are a ninja. Ninja are tools for killing. Sai tried to help comfort me but it didn't work. I just felt worse. But it was an accident. Who would want a ninja who doesn't know their own strength? I slumped down the ground and Sai dropped down to the ground to support my dead weight. I started crying. I felt something stir and I knew something was amiss. I tried to dry my tears and look around the area and there in the moonlight was a mountain of sand. I froze. I watched as the sand began spilling onto the roof and out emerged a crazed-looking Gaara baring his teeth. I felt this immense chakra. You injured me. He seemed shocked and excited at the same time and it was kind of creepy. I was in no condition to fight and the darkness technique took most of my chakra. I could only do my taijutsu and rely heavily on my speed, or I could concentrate chakra to my hand and do the knockout move properly. He took heavy steps towards us and I took a step back and watched as his arm became engulfed in sand and it formed into a demonic arm. Monster, Sai said and Gaara's eyes flashed with recognition and I took that as my chance to body flicker behind him since I had already finished molding some of the chakra. I hit him on the back of the neck and he collapsed to the ground in a heap. I sighed in relief and turned towards the window on the second floor when a gasp was heard. Look what you've done, shouted Tamari. She was crying and the most fear I have seen in ages appeared on her face. There was a mechanical laughter, then a blood-curdling screech emitting from Gaara. I almost wet my pants because of the amount of fear I felt and power emitting from the pale boy. Needless to say, I was worried. What do I do? There was sand circulating from Gaara and most of it accumulated onto his right arm. I quickly turned back to Tamari in desperation. What do I do? What's going on? I asked, hoping she would be able to answer. She swallowed with difficulty, then opened her mouth. Shukaku has emerged, and I frowned. Wasn't Shukaku the one-tailed demon? Did that mean? Realization hit me and I turned back to Gaara, whose upper body looked like a mini Shukaku. I remember, Gaara is just like me, a human sacrifice, and yet he could not control his demon. If I had known he couldn't control it, I would have helped him and we could have been friends. We could share our troubles with each other and finally find someone who could understand. It seems Gaara's demon isn't controlled well, meaning I have about 10 minutes to bring back Gaara or Anbu and the Hokage will arrive. I faced him as my opponent and my heart ached. It hurt to see Gaara like this. Gaara, if you could hear me in there, I understand. I am as well holding a demon inside of me, so please, do not give up. Ha ha ha, stupid mortals and their feelings. Gaara is no longer here, I am. I want to play, so bring out your demon. He said, and I knew Gaara was lost. I watched him morph into a gigantic Shukaku hosting a sleeping Gaara on his head. Maybe I had to wake Gaara up. That's simple. What I need is something or a summon with wings that could bring me close to him. Didn't Yami and Arrow Sennin give me summons? I should summon a celestial beast from Yami since they could fly and whatnot. I focused on revealing my seal and a burning sensation made its way to my neck. Hurry up, I am getting bored. I bit my thumb and smeared the blood on the seal on my neck, then performed 7 seals and raised my palm flat to the sky. Summoning technique. There was a large plume of smoke and I wondered what bird I would get. Suddenly everything felt like it was in slow motion and my mind and soul were at peace as the smoke resided. A gorgeous bird with orange, yellow and red feathers and a tail on fire was flying in the air. Everything went back to normal when the bird opened his mouth. Who has summoned me? Phoenix, son of the great Firebird Lord. I gulped, then waved my hand timidly. I felt his gaze linger on me and I knew he was seizing me up. He made a grunting noise, then swooped down, and without a second thought I jumped on his back. Playtime. Shukaku was still acting immature and the Firebird grunted again. This is our opponent. Yes, Phoenix Dono. If I wanted to make an impression I better start with respect. So little girl can summon angels. Too bad he's way too small to damage me. He cupped his large hands to his mouth and shot an air bubble towards us. Hold on, so this celestial beast was an angel. I guess it could be possible considering its beauty. He dodged to the right, still continuing onward. Suddenly 5 large air blasts were heading straight for us. We were successfully able to dodge 3 of them, but Phoenix had to shoot fire from his breath to cancel the last 2 out. Adding chakra to my feet, I stood up on Phoenix, back, and waited for him to swoop down, low enough for me to land on Shukaku's head. I will speak with you another time. I nodded and I jumped down and heard a poof noise signaling my summon's exit. I was a foot away from Gaara when I landed and I quickly used my speed to my advantage. To move before Shukaku did only left me few options and I chose to charge and deliver a gut punch. My plan worked and Gaara woke up. No, I just came out, Shukaku called before turning into a large pile of sand. I caught Gaara in my arms as we were headed speeding to the ground and molded enough chakra into my feet so I wouldn't get injured. I landed with one knee bent and I cradled him in my arms, hoping he would wake up. His brows were in a frown as he continuously blinked before opening his eyes. He looked up at me and fear welled up in his eyes. No, stay away from me, he yelled in my ear and I felt my heart snap into 2. He squirmed trying to get out of my grip, but I pulled him into a hug instead, and I squeezed him tight. It's okay, I won't hurt you. I just want you to know that I am like you. I too have a demon inside of me. He stopped moving as the words left my mouth. I could feel his heart rate calming down as he took deep breaths. It must be hard, living where nobody loves you, nobody cares, but you're wrong. There will always be someone in your life that cares. Starting now, I want to be that person. It was silent, like he was contemplating on my words, and I waited patiently. Why? He asked, his voice raspy from my guess, holding back tears. I smiled and looked into his eyes. Because I know how you feel. I've been through the judging and the hatred, I've been through everything, and I know that all I wanted was a friend and somebody who cared. I got strong by protecting the people who became my precious people, and look at me now. I giggled as Gaara stared at me blankly. I pouted, do you ever smile? He frowned. We'll work on it later. Right now, you need rest. You also need someone to fix your seal, and if you ask the Hokage, he will be more than welcome to help you. I lifted him up with me and jumped down to the window where Tamari was looking out from. I walked over to a bed and placed him on it. I'll find you, and I body flickered to where I last saw Sai. He was staring at me with a smirk and I raised an eyebrow. You are very interesting, Narumi Kazama. He offered his hand with another fake smile. Shall we? I shrugged my shoulders. I guess he still hasn't gotten the grasp of emotions yet. This day just gets weirder and weirder. With Nightmare, he stared blankly out the window as the small droplets of rain slid down it. He felt empty, like something was missing and guilty. What did he have to lose when he had harmed her? Why was he feeling this now? Her face appeared in his mind and he growled out in frustration. Why? Maybe he should go back. Maybe he should just check on her quickly. He looked over at his sword and swallowed. Should he leave it here? After all, he was stronger without it. Besides, if any mortal were to take hold of it, their soul would be sucked into the sword. Sounds like a plan. He stood up and opened the window. It was only drizzling so the bottom half of his armor would not get rusted. He silently jumped out of the window and ran straight into a forest. He would never be able to forget where he left her. He could picture her big soft brown eyes stare up at him in understanding and care, as if she knew this was not entirely his fault. He could never forget the way her small body had so much blood, the way she coughed and added her smile to the mix. Why only now did he see the error of his ways? How can he be Nightmare if he still had emotions? Cough, thank you, Killick, if you hadn't passed by, I would have died. He stopped running when the familiar honey-sweet voice echoed into his ears. There was a deep chuckle. I came back to warn you about the demon. There was a noise, like flesh hitting flesh, Talum. You shouldn't hit people in your condition. Coughing fits occurred but only when they died down did Talum speak. He is not a demon, Killick, he is simply misunderstood, she stated firmly. Nightmare's mouth hung open. How can she say such things about me after I almost cut her open? He thought. I suppose you understand him? He said sarcastically. Why yes, I believe I do. Nightmare smiled, but it looked more like an animal baring his teeth. His heart was warm. What is this feeling, knowing that she forgave him? Why hadn't he felt it earlier? He knew there was always something special about this girl. Could it be that she could be the one? He approached the chatter hoping to see Talum. The girl he had no idea captured his heart. He parted the bush they were behind and froze at what he saw. From her shoulders and down was a large bandage wrapping. She was lying down while Killick was tightening the bandages and putting cream on her bruises. They were both smiling. Nightmare realized he hated seeing her happy without him. He realized that he didn't like the way Killick looked into her eyes. He clenched his fist in anger. It should be him helping her with her wounds even if he inflicted him. You, how dare you show your face after you hurt Talum? He said angrily. He charged towards Nightmare holding no weapons, blinded by rage. Nightmare stared at the ground, fist still clenched, and thrust it forward at the right moment into Killick's ribs. There was a cracking noise as he dropped to the ground in searing pain. Nightmare looked at Talum and watched as she tried to crawl over to her weapons, wincing every once in a while. The rain began to beat harder with every step he took. It hurt him watching her be afraid enough to defend herself. She was too slow and Nightmare was already standing over her. He dropped to his knees and held her hand. Don't you touch her, Killick yelled, hoping his words would hurt more than his attempted attack. Nightmare ignored him and pulled Talum onto his lap and stood up, heading to the same tree where he saw both her and Killick earlier. The rain would reopen and wet her wound and bandage. Her eyes were shut tightly, afraid of what she might see, and a throbbing feeling was near Nightmare's heart. He sat down and leaned against the tree trunk. Open your eyes, he whispered to her in his rough voice. It made him upset knowing he could never speak gently towards her. She peeked with one eye then opened both at the same time, blinking to adjust to the darkness. She stared at his eyes and smiled. You look more sane without that evil sword. He blinked in response. Was that why he was able to feel these emotions? Because he was finally regaining his sanity? Was it because it took time adjusting to the fact that Ibuki had taken his sword? Ibuki must have some evil within him if he could carry the sword without missing his soul. That sword was evil and only attracted those with impure hearts. If you were a mere human, the sword would continue to suck your soul until nothing was left. But if you were like Nightmare, it would use you as a carrier and take your soul piece by piece, but it won't kill you. Because he was separated from his sword for so long, his soul must be mending, trying to regain its sanity. It also made sense that Nightmare was not used to the feeling of becoming human again. She averted her gaze, guilt washing over him. Sorry for, I think I am retrieving the saner side of myself back. Think I am regaining my humanity thanks to you. Talam's smile faded as she frowned. It's happening so quickly, and he could only nod in response. Talam's frown faded. I usually know of one thing that can cure the deepest of wounds. That is, he whispered, watching as her eyes sparkled as she murmured the word. Love. With Kirei. I loved the rain. Ever since I was little I could never forget how wonderful it felt watching as people ran from something that wasn't me. I loved when it poured and made my body soaking wet. I loved the noises it makes and the wonderful feeling of dancing in it, not to mention the beautiful air when it was all over. That was why I chose to walk and take the longest route home when it was pouring. But my all-time favorite reason why I love the rain is because of my tears. Nobody could see them and nobody could tell I was crying, no matter how well you knew me, no matter how often you thought of me, no matter what, nobody could ever tell I was sad when it rained, thank God for that. I was always this happy-go-lucky girl. Imagine what people would do to me when they figure out that they are close to hurting me. I don't think I would be alive today. What I hated the most was the fact every song I know always had something to do with the rain leaving or people hating the rain. Why would somebody hate the cleansing of the world? Kirei. Somebody called. I jumped. I wasn't expecting anyone to be out this late. Maybe it was a figure of my imagination. I reached to my cheeks to wipe away the tears when I remembered it was raining and I smiled. I focused on the approaching figure and noticed a panting Sasuke heading towards me. I frowned. Wasn't he supposed to be training? Sasuke, I asked, and I almost laughed at the face Itachi was giving me. Sorry Itachi, just that, you look like your brother from far. He was still panting and I sighed knowingly. Were you training? He shook his head and smirked. I was racing. I frowned. Who? His smirk faded and he took my hand and we started walking. Myself, I wanted to see who was faster, me or my clone, and I laughed. Are you feeling okay? I asked and he gently squeezed my hand. Why wouldn't I be? I sighed. Sometimes I wonder if he was as smart as everyone makes him to be. He suddenly stopped walking and I let go of his hand to turn and face him. He was a head taller than me, but I don't mind looking up at him. Why do you look exhausted, like you just fought for the past 2 hours? I opened my mouth to respond, but my voice caught in my throat when his fingers gently touched my cheek. Why are you crying? He asked and I stared into his coal black eyes. How was I supposed to react to that? Took me years of perfecting the art of crying in the rain. Bad habit, I replied, averting his gaze. He cupped my chin and I was looking at Cole again. Lies. Are you remembering something painful? I nodded, not sure how to react at being found out. I will bring you home and you and I will have a long chat. He turned around and patted his back and I hesitantly climbed onto him. I thought he would jump from rooftop to rooftop, but instead he walked and I held him tightly, loving the warmth radiating from him. I snuggled closer and smiled. Thank you. He didn't respond, but I knew he didn't need to. With Kirei next day. How does he keep doing that? Just dodging my attacks like it is nothing. I mastered my taijutsu style, yet he acts as if I am some below-average genin. I am one of the most promising of my clan and I have the most talent, yet he acts as if I am nothing. I grabbed my chest as I couldn't control my breathing. My panting was becoming louder and louder. I think you've reached your limit, Itachi said, dismissing his clone and appearing behind me. My eyes almost bulged out of its sockets. Is the difference between him and I that great? How? I asked, spinning around to face him. He ran a hand through his hair. You are not concentrating enough. Here, he shot me a bottle of water and sat down on the grass. I followed suit, wondering what he had planned after our 4-hour spar. He smiled. You are very good for your age, but your talents are going to waste. I pouted and I watched his smile grew larger at my reaction. Do not take it personal, it is an amazing feat to last 4 hours with me. Yes, but you were playing around. He frowned. I wouldn't be so sure. There was a reason as to why I refused for you to hit me. He gently held my hand and traced my palm. Your chakra was concentrated here. I tried not to laugh. It was very ticklish. It seems somebody taught you the meaning of elemental chakra. I frowned. Nope, I just thought of adding my wind affinity to my hand, is all. It's just because I saw the damage it could do when concentrated into a weapon. Itachi raised an eyebrow. You came up with this by yourself? I nodded and he looked amazed. That is amazing. You already know one of your affinities and you discovered its talent to cut through almost everything. You see, elemental chakra is different than normal chakra. Normal chakra is what you use for basic techniques, say for example, an immobilized technique will use your normal chakra, but if you used a grand fireball technique, knowing your affinity would be wind, just a small percentage of your elemental chakra would go into the technique to give it its natural boost, I frowned. So basically, elemental chakra is used for elemental techniques, and depending which element is yours, the amount of elemental chakra can vary. He nodded and stopped tracing my hand, then pulled out a square piece of paper. He handed it to me. Add chakra, and I did, and the paper cut in half then got wet. You have an affinity of water and wind. Interesting, I guess we could work on your ninjutsu another time, seeing as you already have a large variety of wind, fire and earth techniques, I smiled. If you wanted to know my second affinity, you could have just asked, and he gave me a look, so I laughed in return. Inwardly, I felt so warm and happy. I was very proud to know that my ninjutsu skills were acceptable in the eyes of the Uchiha Itachi. I guess I am not some average genin. Your genjutsu is non-existing, and I would not mind teaching you the basics. When you obtain knowledge of that, you can make any genjutsu you see fit. You have amazing chakra control, so it shouldn't be a problem. What the problem is your taijutsu. It is based on your legs and speed and not much on your strength. What you need is a style that doesn't base itself around one thing. It should complement your knowledge on everything: speed, strength and precision. I understand you are familiar with the human body. Some parts are a little unclear, but I guess I am. Excellent. This style uses your speed to get close to the opponent and hit either the vital points, nerve system or blood flow. Of course you could do all three, but it will take you 3 to 5 years to master all three, I smirked. I would rather learn all three, Itachi grinned. Prepare for no sleep. These 2 weeks you should have the basics of all three styles, and I groaned. I closed my eyes and gulped down. The image of Dosu and his limbs flying entered my mind and I froze. I took an innocent life away. I felt guilty. But I promise, by the time Itachi is through with me, I will have 2 styles under my belt as well as a Junin weapon, not to mention the Gen and ninjutsu. I will also be able to know my own strength and never make the same mistake again. Itachi shot a kunai behind a bush and somebody jumped into the open field. I was shocked to see Sai looking as impassive as ever and I frowned. What are you doing here? I asked, taking a step closer. Sai's eyes moved towards Itachi then back at me. It's okay, he won't hurt you. Sai stopped tensing. I wanted to train with you, but when I saw Itachi, he trailed off and I smiled. He won't harm you. But I spoke too soon, for he was behind Sai holding a kunai to his throat looking like a cold dead murderer, and I have to admit, I got scared for a second. Who are you? He let the threat hang in the air and I frowned. Sai is a friend we can trust, right? I asked. He gave his normal fake smiles. Of course, Narumi. Itachi's grip hardened when the words left Sai's mouth. I do not trust him. I think we should just get rid of him or erase his memory. I looked at Sai and he didn't seem to mind the conversation and his position. Narumi, I think Itachi is right for what he did to his clan. Why would I tell the Hokage when he is somebody I hope to become? I frowned. Was he telling the truth? I scanned his mind and noticed he seemed confident and sure of his answer, but it did not say anything about a lie. Okay, I guess we can trust you. Say, why don't you become my testing dummy? 2 weeks later. Due to the disappearance of Dosu, Kirei would be fighting Hyuga Neji. I shot Neji a glance and he was smirking. Closing my eyes, I concentrated on his thoughts. It seemed like he was remembering something. I will pay her back for shouting those comments. His right eye began to twitch and I knew that he didn't take my encouraging for Hinata too well. I covered my mouth from laughing. Did I make the snobby Neji twitch? Oh my goodness, I deserve a medal. I took a deep breath. My opponent was supposed to be Dosu, but I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping the image of his body would leave my mind if I tried hard enough. It just made things worse. I could feel the tears threatening to fall. Why do I feel so guilty? Sai, this is troublesome to say, but it would help if you weren't so sad looking, somebody said from beside me. I jumped, realizing Shikamaru had his hand on my shoulder. I gave a quick smile. I'm fine, just a little nervous for my match. I will continue with my flames of youth in no time. He didn't seem to buy my excuse, but he reluctantly followed the rest of the contestants up to the balcony. I looked over at a smirking Neji. He grinned. Examiner, destiny has already decided that I shall win his fight. Put the girl out of her misery and end the match. I rolled my eyes and flung a kunai that cut the strand that held his hair together. He abruptly stopped talking and stared at me in fear for a second before waving his hand. So the dead last got lucky. I rolled my eyes, then body flickered to him. I sent a gut punch to his gut and he was sent soaring through the air. That training with Itachi really paid off. I was able to control some of my speed and my strength and the amount of chakra I used. I did not stop there. I kept going and going and going until I punched his head and he went tumbling to the ground. I smirked as he rolled. How does it feel to be treated the way you treat others? I asked, not caring if I looked like a total bitch. He tried to stand up quickly but only dropped to his knee. I cracked my knuckles in anticipation of the beating I was going to give him. You know, I can keep this up all day. Kirei's mind. DK, I feel so weak, LK murmured as she was crawling since her legs were disappearing. She only had knees and above of her body still intact. DK was lying on the ground facing the ceiling as larger amounts of dark energy zoomed into her and causing her to cry out in pain. Ah, help Kirei, somebody has to do it. LK felt a part of her missing and her knees were starting to disappear. She looked at it with determination. We have to warn Itachi-chan. She looked over at the fallen DK. Can you help me send a distress signal to him? She asked. She gasped out in agony then coughed. It will hurt me and weaken you. LK nodded knowing what she was getting but it didn't bother her. If this did not work, Neji will be dead in the next hour. Kirei would rather torture him in front of everyone than kill him. She nodded, ready to save both their lives and Kirei's mind. With Itachi, Itachi dropped the tea kettle he was holding as he felt a blood-curdling scream and searing pain in his head. He closed his eyes trying to figure out what it really meant. There was no one who would be capable of doing this save for Yamanaka's and Kirei. Maybe she was in danger, maybe she needed his help. But she's in the Chunin exams, I could risk getting caught. He remembered the scream and the whisper of evil and his gaze hardened. I guess it is a risk I am willing to take, and he created an exploding clone and put the Akatsuki cloak on it as well as the hat with the ribbons coming down. He instructed his clone to find her and figure out what is wrong at all cost. Now all he had to do was wait. Too bad waiting for something so scary can always seem like an eternity. With Kirei, I grabbed Neji up by his hair and stared at him in wonder. He had scars and blood on the side of his face. He looked horrible and it made me feel good knowing someone else looked how I felt. I smirked at him as he stared at me in my eyes defiantly. Where is your destiny now? How can that make you win a fight? I laughed in his face and stopped when I noticed he wasn't scared nor amused. Did you forget about the Hyuga clan techniques? I frowned. Does it really matter? It will not change the outcome of the match but I like to play with things that even think they can survive. Enlighten me, he smirked. You are within my field of divination. I felt something stir in me and it blocked out the world and all I could hear was pain but not mine, from either LK or DK. When I came to, I was being jabbed around by Neji as he cried out numbers. With a final cry of 64, I dropped to the ground and stayed there. I should just wait for the right moment. He was laughing and it ticked me off, and the dead last is finished. With no way to mold chakra, how can you use your speed technique? It is over, you cannot defeat me at all so why bother try? Destiny has already told me that I will win. I looked over at the sky and watched a bird fly over to the tree and feed its young. I smiled if life only were that easy. Listen here Neji, I am sick and tired of your destiny crap. I do not care about how you got into your cold facade and I know one thing for sure. You are scared and alone. His face retorted into shock. You are afraid of being alone and you are afraid of the power you were given. I know you are stronger than any other Hyuga but that doesn't mean that you have the right to bore everyone to death about how crappy your life is. For sakes, imagine coming home to somebody who will hurt you in ways you cannot imagine. You are blessed, you actually have a family that has been there since day one. You are not the only one who has suffered so get up and on with your life and stop taking it out on others, pricks like you turn girls like me evil. I sat up, panting and watched as Neji looked frightened of me, his bulging white eyes staring back at me in fear. Impossible, he said and I guess he was talking about my different chakra signatures. I know Kyuubi hasn't said anything so she must be sleeping so I needed somebody else's chakra so I took the most prominent which happened to be DK. It surged through me and burst my chakra points open. I made a backflip and put my feet first on the ground and stood up. I watched as the dark chakra licked at the ground and cracked rocks. Why was it stronger than usual? I looked back up at Neji and smiled. There are many things one assumes about me and they always end up like you. I created 5 clones and told them to attack him all at once but he made this weird ball and began spinning really fast. Kaden, he yelled causing my clones to disappear in a puff of smoke. He stopped spinning and I watched as he held on to his chest where I repeatedly punched him before. I laughed to myself and tried to cover it up by sending 10 clones this time towards him while I gathered information about this spinning trick. He did it again, still in the same position as before and I saw the chakra coming from his palms as he spun. I looked at the damage and he was digging a very deep hole in there. I smiled thinking of an idea. I summoned at least 100 clones and began shooting air cannons at him. Let's see how long he could keep this up. I made 49 clones attack him and hid one clone underground. I sent an air cannon and he ducked, then began his spin from the ground and slowly began to stand up. Soon my clones were all gone and I could set my plan into action, to scare the out of the stupid Destiny boy. I waited until he caught sight of me and I smiled. So Neji, are you tired? He stood up straight and flipped me off and I fell to the ground dying of laughter. I think that was the highlight of my day. OMG, the Hyuga Neji flipped me off. And I died of laughter again. I stopped when I felt my sides beginning to burst. I stood up and realized some people from the stadium were sweat dropping. I wiped away a non-existing tear and got into my taijutsu stance. Even though Itachi said it would not suit me that well, I still improved it a tiny bit. I ran full speed towards Neji and started everything off with a spinning bird kick. He easily dodged everything and I smiled knowing this would happen. I had already gotten my palms charged with elemental chakra and I touched his wrist quickly and effortlessly without him knowing. Neji was just about to attack my heart, but I used my speed to my advantage and backflipped away knowing that I did what I wanted to do. Neji stood up in his stance and smirked at me. You realize that my style is superior? I snorted in disgust. You realize that I would not challenge a Hyuga in taijutsu unless I have a plan right. Besides, I am way faster than you, so if you ever hit me, it's because I let you hit me. He glared at me as I taunted him. I noticed his distance was nowhere near where he was before when he made the deep hole when spinning his Kaden. Is this all the Hyuga have to offer? I rather face the leader than some wannabe clan head. That got him riled up. He came running towards me and when I saw that he was 5 seconds away from the hole, I sent an air cannon towards him. He stopped and began charging for a Kaden, but then blood squirted out of his wrist and he stopped and clutched his wrist in pain. The air cannon was headed straight towards him and he had time to dodge, except that I made my clone emerge from the ground and hold him in place. His eyes were in shock and he closed them as the air cannon hit him directly on. My clone disappeared and Neji dropped to the ground, face staring up at the sky. How? He asked and I grinned. Does he really want to know how he was defeated? Simple, your Kaden made you spin using your chakra, which caused you to leave a hole into the ground enough for me to disguise my clone in and wait for the right moment to jump out. I decided to put some of my new intellect to the test and use my elemental chakra to cut your wrist, which by the way should get treated before you bleed to death. Knowing you would get angry and charge forward back to where the hole was and back towards where my clone was, all I had to do was send an air cannon and wait for you to do the Kaden and falter because of the pain and the blood coming from you and make my clone keep you still, and boom, your weak and tired body would not be able to handle a simple and weak air cannon. Winner Kirei. The crowd did not instantly erupt in cheers, but I did not care. I needed to get out of here and find out what happened to LK and DK before something happens. I walked up the staircase and noticed Itachi in his cloak, but something felt off and I think it is a clone. I frowned. What do you want? I asked. He simply revealed his Sharingan and entered my mind. It was weird, I felt like something was there that shouldn't be. I watched Itachi make his way around the sewers and find half of LK and DK surrounded by an eerie black glow. I was rooted to my place, not sure what to do or how to react. DK had these large balls of darkness swarming into her while LK was disappearing by the second. I shivered. How do I save them? Think something good, Itachi said. I nodded and began reminiscing about my time with my family and Satsuki, the day Himitsu first adopted me, the day when Itachi finally said he loved me, the days when I was never truly alone. It made me feel better, calm and relaxed, like nothing could stop me, like everything was going to be okay as long as those people were with me. I looked over at LK and she was getting better, her body was slowly coming back to her. I turned to DK and the balls of energy slowly evaporated. As long as you keep thinking happy thoughts, LK will become as strong as DK, and remember that Dosu's death was inevitable. It is okay, you are a ninja, that is why you train, just don't think of it all the time, find a hobby. I closed my eyes and I was back on the staircase. Itachi tipped his hat then wandered off somewhere. I hope he stayed and watched my next match though. I walked up the stairs and saw Gaara standing in a corner, eyes closed, leaning against the wall. I wondered how he was feeling. Maybe I should communicate with him in his mind. Will Uchiha Sasuke and Gaara of the desert please make their way to the arena? Asked the proctor. I frowned. Come to think of it, I haven't seen Sasuke since the second part of the exams. I wonder where he is. People in the audience were shouting things that I couldn't make out because there were so many people shouting so many different things. The examiner looked up at the Hokage box and waited for something. He then lifted his hand in the air to silence everyone. Well, the Hokage said that he will postpone the match until the Uchiha arrives. Can Shikamaru and Tenten make their way to the arena? He asked. Tenten smiled and tightened her gloves, then jumped from the balcony and down to the arena. Shikamaru on the other hand was still leaning against the pole staring up at the clouds. I smiled, he is always so carefree. I walked slowly behind him and as I was about to push him, he snorted. I can hear you from a mile away. I laughed sheepishly. I think I am going to forfeit, it's too troublesome fighting woman. A vein suddenly popped from my head. Are you being sexist? Are you trying to say that women are weak and troublesome? I punched him in the head and he flew off the balcony. Serves you right. I yelled after him. He landed on the arena head first and dust appeared. The proctor's sweat dropped and waited for Shikamaru to stand up. He sat up and leaned against the wall and I twitched. You a chicken? I started clucking at him and he frowned then stood up. Fine, I will fight her if you just relax and calm down. I smiled triumphantly and Shino shook his head as if ashamed to be around me. Shikamaru walked casually towards the proctor. Begin, he called and Tenten immediately jumped back. She shot 8 kunais with accuracy and speed, which was why I was shocked when Shikamaru pulled out a single kunai, blocking each one. My eyes dropped open. Shino, did you know that Shikamaru actually trained? I asked bewildered. Shino pushed up his glasses with his index finger. Ever since he was curious about you, I noticed he trained often with Choji. It also caused Ino to train more, making their team a strong one. I looked back at the arena realizing that I underestimated Shikamaru. Tenten smirked knowing that would happen and jumped back again. She pulled out S summoning scroll and out came a bow staff. She got into a stance and charged towards Shikamaru. Shikamaru kept his other hand in his pocket and his kunai in his hand and dodged her strikes. If he could, he would parry a blow with his kunai. It is an amazing feat to keep up with a weapon mistress. Tenten swept the ground with a bow and Shikamaru jumped over and kicked her in the chest. She went soaring back but caught herself in midair. Shikamaru was quick, very quick, his reflexes are sharp. It was like he was a step ahead of her the whole time. Tenten's bow poofed away and she jumped in the air, and when I thought Shikamaru would stop her, he ran straight towards the trees on the other side of the arena. I sweat dropped. He headed straight under the trees and put his hands in this weird position. Just when I thought he was getting somewhere, Tenten stopped in midair and spotted Shikamaru. She summoned a windmill ninja star and launched it at him. It was closing in pretty quick. He better jump off that branch or the ninja star would break it. He better move, I mumbled. I knew Shino was smiling, I just did. Shikamaru opened his eyes abruptly and jumped to the next tree. Tenten caught the large ninja star a safe distance away. I know you need my shadow, so if I stay in the sun and far away from you, I will be safe. You can't dodge from tree to tree forever, Tenten said as she smiled. She began launching thousands of weapons, didn't matter what, towards Shikamaru, who cartwheeled and jumped as hard as he could away from her. Soon there were no more trees that stood, they were just heaps on the ground and Shikamaru was standing in the middle of the rubble. Tenten smirked. You're trapped. She jumped in the air and began her signature twin dragon move. As they were headed towards Shikamaru, he made head seals really fast, made his hands look like blurs, and a large shadow dome surrounded the rubble with him inside. The weapons bounced off of the dome until Tenten stopped throwing them. She dropped to the ground a couple of meters closer to Shikamaru than where she was earlier. That's impossible, she said in disbelief. Shadow skill. Shadow shield technique, Shikamaru said as the dome slowly came down and the shadows went back where they came from. Tenten was panting a lot, but Shikamaru seemed to be controlling his. Since when did he become so strong? He's supposed to be the laziest genin in the world. Tenten went into her pouch and pulled out several more kunais but suddenly stopped moving. Shadow skill. Shadow bind. She was trapped. It seemed that Shikamaru was a step ahead. Proctor, I give up, he said. Boos of outrage came from the audience. I smiled then started laughing. What a match. He was always ahead of her and yet he gives the match to her anyway. Shikamaru is one mysterious dude. The proctor declared Tenten the winner and Shikamaru released her and they both headed up the stairs towards us. Awesome match, guys. They both nodded but Tenten seemed distracted. Tenten, what's the matter? She asked. She smiled. Shikamaru beat me fair and square, I guess I need to broaden my horizons. She leaned over the bar right next to me and we spoke amicably. Will Abraham Shino and Konkuro of the desert please calm down? I gave Shino a wink and he nodded. As Shino was about to jump down, Konkuro spoke up. I forfeit, which caused many people to turn heads. I frowned then looked over at him. Are you forfeiting because you are weak or do you have a hidden agenda? I asked calmly. What's it to you? My eyebrow twitched at how rude he could be and I was about to lunge at him when I felt 3 people holding me down. Let me at him. I clawed at the air as Shino, Shikamaru and Tenten held me back. We will wait 5 minutes for Uchiha Sasuke. I looked over at Gaara and I stopped moving which made the others let me go. I walked over to him and Kankuro began smirking, so I turned to him. What are you smirking about? I asked rudely. Kankuro laughed. Gaara doesn't like to be disturbed. I rolled my eyes at his stupid antics. Maybe if I ignore the fly, it will go away. I was standing right in front of Gaara. We were roughly the same height. One of his eyes opened and I tilted my head to the side. Hello, I said cheerfully. He didn't move at all or nothing, he just watched me, not even blinking. I laughed. Why are you acting like that? We already know you're strong. He blinked and I thought of it as progress. Is this village precious to you as well? He asked quietly. I stuck my tongue out and scratched my head and thought. I'm acting like LK, I guess her returning of the body must have impacted me most the same way DK's darkness surrounded me. I actually didn't know the answer to that. Well, if the village was going to be destroyed I'll be very upset, but as long as everyone fights it will be okay, no one will get hurt. He nodded and I grinned. You know, you need to open up more, get more precious people. He stared at me blankly. I am strong because I fight for myself and me alone. I have been alone since and precious people are the ones you love, yet I never will receive love nor will I ever give it. He closed his eyes uncaringly, like the conversation was done. I pouted. One day you will see the error of your ways, Gaara. Trust me, when someone you care about is in danger, you will be able to do miraculous things. I remembered a time when Itachi came to visit. I was 10 years old and he was injured and being followed. Gaara still remained closed and I turned to the balcony. I could feel Kankuro's shocked gaze on me and I turned to him and stuck out my tongue. Loser. He gritted his teeth and put down the puppet on his back ready to hurt me. I stood straight and stared at him as if daring him to do it. Kankuro, the reason you quit this match is the reason why you will not fight this girl, Gaara said. I laughed at Kankuro as he put the puppet back on his back and stared at me angrily. He looked like a kid who got caught stealing cookies from the cookie jar. Sasuke's here, Tenten said. I perked up and ran to the balcony. They entered the arena, back to back and staring out looking so cool, which made me angry. He and Ichiro left not even once coming to visit me at all. I was bored and Uchiha still owed me a bet. I jumped onto the balcony and yelled, Sasuke. I was very pissed, so I jumped and performed a really cool jump kick straight for his face. He looked at me and smirked and it made me flare my chakra around my body. Dumb thinks he's all cool and everything. Uchiha. I yelled again and he simply ducked, which made me change my direction to Kakashi-sensei's back. He dropped on his and sat crossed-legged right before my foot landed, which made me hit the ground and leave an imprint of my flared foot. I pulled it out and went marching over to Sasuke, pointing an angry finger at him. You. I stood right in front of him and I realized he was still taller than me by 3 inches. You leave and you don't even tell me where you go, so I can't visit or anything. I ought to kick your right here and right now. I went to slap him but he caught it, still smirked at me. Indigo was here, you could have trained with him. I used my leg to kick his ribs but he caught that too. He left me all alone as well. Hole. Stop smirking. Somebody coughed but I ignored them. You still have to spar with me, not to mention our deal. Sasuke remembered. I could tell because his smirk left his face and I think there are no more color pigments in his body. Somebody coughed again and I rolled my eyes and turned to where the noise was coming from. What? I asked. Kakashi rubbed the back of his neck, his book in his other hand. Sorry to bother you, Kirei-chan, but we were already late, so you're going to have to move this conversation along. I glared at him. Not without our deal. I made 5 hand seals and there was a poof of smoke and lo and behold, Sasuke had a mohawk, no shirt and pierced nipples. It is irreversible, so good luck with your match. I quickly body flickered back to the balcony and fell to the ground laughing. At least I wasn't laughing alone. Tenten was with me on the ground. He's blushing, Shino declared, and I started laughing and crying at the same time. Gaara teleported down there and I slowly got back to my feet. I looked over at the match to see Sasuke in his outfit Sharingan blazing ready to battle Gaara. The match started and Sasuke disappeared only to reappear and punch Gaara in the face. I recognized that style anywhere. That's bushy brows style, isn't it, Tenten? I glanced over at her and she looked shocked and surprised. To be able to master that in 1 month is amazing. It took Lee his whole life to master that. Gaara was losing, badly. But then Gaara started to form this cocoon and Sasuke stopped moving and held his left arm. Suddenly chakra began to form and 1,000 birds chirping made its way to my ears. Sasuke looked like he had a lightning sword and he charged straight for Gaara. There was a blood-curdling scream coming from Gaara. My blood. He sounded confused and shocked, as if it were absurd to even think you could lay a finger on him. I was afraid for Gaara and afraid that Sasuke wouldn't be able to take on Shukaku alone, damn it. Why didn't Gaara see the Hokage? Maybe he could have helped him understand how life was outside from the shelter of fear and loneliness. There was a loud explosion coming from the north gate and I sighed in relief. Now Gaara and Sasuke won't have to get hurt since we are being attacked. Wait, I did a double take. Konoha, the strongest of the great 5 nations, was under attack. I watched as feathers fell from the sky and Kankuro and Temari appear out of nowhere and help Gaara escape. I looked around, everyone was falling asleep. My eyes became droopy but then I felt it was a genjutsu so I simply undid it. I looked over at Shikamaru but then I was grabbed from behind. I struggled. I'm not here to kill you, I just don't want anyone to appear before we disappear. I blinked and we were on a roof. I looked around and it was the hospital roof. I stepped on my kidnapper's toe and jumped back then faced whoever took me away. I stared at Kabuto. I asked. He was smiling and I took a step back. Kirei, or should I say Narumi, I was instructed to open your eyes, to make you see what this village was really about. I frowned. What are you talking about? I asked. His cloak blew in the wind and his mask dropped from his waist, and he chuckled. I don't have much time to explain but Konoha isn't the place you thought it out to be, he said. I frowned. How was I supposed to accept what he was telling me? Your name is not Kirei, nor is your original last name Uzumaki. I stared at him in shock. This may seem strange but you were related to the 4th Hokage. He is not your father but your uncle. Your father was the 4th's brother and he met your mother and had you. Your real name is Kazama Narumi and you have an older brother. Your father was in the shadow of his younger brother so when the Kyuubi attacked he was called upon to use you as a sacrifice since your brother was 6 years older than you. Your father and mother died leaving you as a forgotten memory with plenty of enemies in neighboring countries. But there is something else. Your father was slowly going insane. He conducted experiments with Orochimaru on you and your brother and several well-known people. Your powers will soon begin to show. I shook my head. I do not believe you. My father wasn't corrupted like that awful man and I do not have a brother. If I did, he would never leave me here in this village to rot. Your brother dropped off the face of the earth. He left a year after the Kyuubi was sealed into you. You don't have to worry about him, he's probably dead. But your brother was special. He got through to Itachi and they became friends but when he went missing, Itachi spiraled out of control. He knows everything about you and about your family as does the Hokage and Kakashi. After all, your sensei looked up to your uncle and witnessed some of the research. You're lying. My family would never experiment on me or on my so-called brother. The Hokage would have told me if somebody with my body when I was younger. I gathered elemental chakra to my fist and called upon the wind to help me. There was a gust of wind and I knew the wind was answering my calls. I wanted this stupid lying son of a bitch to die for putting things into my head. It was really windy for Kabuto to the point where he had to wipe his glasses. I used that as my chance to slam a palm of elemental chakra to his heart. He effortlessly dodged and put my hands behind my back. You don't get it. Your father is evil and green with jealousy. He killed your mother. Everything everyone has been feeding you is lies. He pushed up and I opened my mouth in pain. Those things you call precious people are nothing but phonies so I would advise you to make the right choice and destroy the village that destroyed your life. We were surrounded by leaves and I felt him move off of me. I turned around but he was gone and I was standing back in the arena. Kakashi and Guy were fighting off ninja right beside me and I ducked to avoid a flying body. Kirei, follow Shikamaru and Tenten. They will lead you to Sasuke and Gaara. I stared at him a little longer. He knew all along. I swallowed then dashed to the hole in the wall and jumped down to the empty ground. I closed my eyes. I will have to deal with this later. Wind guide me, I whispered then I felt a southeast wind and headed in that direction. It led me to a forest and I noticed some tracks and traps, seems like they were followed or something. I pressed on hoping to find my comrades before something happened. I felt a presence that I haven't felt in a long time and I slowed my pace until this familiar chakra signature stopped beside me. I looked over and saw nobody so I shrugged my shoulders and headed in the same direction. I noticed Kankuro and Shino battling up ahead so I went around them giving Shino a quick wink as I speeded ahead. I arrived to a half-transformed Gaara squeezing 10-10 to a tree while Tamari was hiding behind another tree. I jumped beside a panting and half-cursed seal Sasuke. Where is Shikamaru? I asked. He leaned against the tree. He stayed back to fight off some other opponents. I frowned. I don't remember seeing anyone. Maybe he got rid of them quickly. I looked over at Sasuke. Are you okay? He clenched his jaw and stood up straight. I'm fine. When those words left his mouth, he dropped to the ground and I crouched next to him. I looked over at Gaara and my heart ached again. What should I do? Maybe I should see what's going on in his mind. I closed my eyes and focused, trying to enter Gaara. I opened my eyes and was staring at a thrashing Shukaku. We were in the middle of a desert and he was shackled down with glowing yellow chains. Gaara was on the ground, holding his head while shaking furiously. I ran towards Gaara and hugged him. It's okay, I'm here. He smacked me away and I fell back. Go away, you'll get hurt too. I took a closer look at Gaara and he looked so much younger. I smiled, maybe I can gain his trust. I crawled over to him and rubbed his back. It's okay, I'm here with you, I will be with you until forever, you will help me and I will help you. I will be here with you. Shukaku started laughing. I will stay with you until that demon stops. He looked at me desperately. Really? He seemed so pure and innocent the first could not bring myself to say no. I nodded and his face brightened. I sat down cross-legged and put him on my lap. He seemed shocked at first but stopped tensing when he realized that I wasn't going to do anything to him. We watched Shukaku thrashing and almost breaking free of his chain. Gaara flinched here and there but I squeezed him to let him know nothing would happen. You are that girl that big Gaara is afraid of. He is afraid that you would wipe his existence away. I laughed. Why would he think such a thing? Because the only way we survive the wounds of the heart is love. If big Gaara and I push everyone away, then we would never have wounds of the heart, we will only fight for ourselves. That is how we became strong. But then big Gaara met you and saw that you were strong because you love. Mother did not think that we should start being like you, so now mother is angry. Damn right, I'm energy. You are weak, Shukaku yelled. I winced. It took all my strength to block out his constant cries of discourage. Little Gaara, correct? He nodded. I can be the one person you live to protect until the day you die. It is only fair since you are the one I fight to see the next day. I love you because you and I are the same. I too am called a demon, but I have found people who care for me as much as I care for you. Your sister cares, maybe your brother, so you should start with them. He nodded. I will. I could not hold the barrier keeping Shukaku's thoughts away and he began to scream. I was in an extreme amount of pain so I couldn't take it anymore and I stood up holding little Gaara's hand. Shut up, Kyuubi can't take the noise. I could not flare her chakra but I hoped that he was afraid of Kyuubi or he would just continue to torment Gaara. He snorted but kept quiet. I am her container, so leave Gaara and my village alone. He glared at me but I stood my ground trying to show off that he could do no harm to me. He backed off and I closed my eyes and returned to real life. I blinked and I was still in the same position as before. What happened? I asked. Sasuke looked relieved. You were out like a light, and Gaara started to mumble to himself and wither around. It was like someone entered his head. I smiled knowing my telepathy worked, then felt extremely weak. I fell back but there was nothing to support me, so I fell out of the tree and landed really hard on my head. Kirei wakes up. I woke up distraught and confused. Where was I? Why did I feel a bandage around my head? I opened my eyes slowly and noticed I was back in the hospital. I could tell because of the weird smell. My head began throbbing and I glanced around the room. It was dark outside and I looked around and found the clock on the wall. It read 1:30 and I groaned. I woke up so late. I felt something familiar but I couldn't place it, but then I saw something poof into my room. I jumped then relaxed when I noticed it was Itachi. He smirked down at me and I glared. Not cool, what's been happening since I was gone? He lay down right beside me and wrapped around me and stroked my hair. Do you actually know what's going on? If you're wondering what happened to Gaara, he left with his sister and brother and Sasuke is in the room beside you, sleeping. I relaxed again. When I first heard Sasuke was here with me, I thought he would jump up and start attacking Itachi randomly. Thank goodness he's sleeping. I sighed. That exam was very draining. I frowned when I remembered what Kabuto told me. Itachi, do you know my brother? I asked whispering. He was still and I wondered if he heard me. Who told you? He asked. I raised an eyebrow. Does it matter? I know about it now. Your brother is a very close friend of mine. Unfortunately, he disappeared the day Kyuubi was sealed in you and the day your father and mother passed. That is all I know. I sat up in frustration. How can you lie to me? I know you're lying, that is not what Kabuto told me. I said angrily. Itachi stared up at me, matching my gaze. You spoke to that treacherous bastard. I snorted. And what are you? He clutched his heart. Low blow, Kirei. I glared harder. He better not try to change the subject. You better tell me that this is just some big joke. There is no way in hell that I had a brother and that my father tested on him and You have to be joking. He did not respond. He stared off into space and I dropped my mouth. You knew? I asked in a hushed voice. You knew about these so-called experiments with Orochimaru. He still did not respond and I pulled his chin towards me, but I did not let go. Answer me. He sighed heavily. Kirei, I don't think you would like to know. Apparently you know more about me than I do. He did not respond. He averted my gaze and stared blankly at the ceiling. You say you love me, you care about me, yet you were keeping information from me like my background and family. How can I trust you if you can't tell me anything? How can I trust you if I had to learn something important of the both of us from Kabuto, Orochimaru's personal bitch? He still did not say anything and I glared. So it's true, my father killed my mother then killed himself. My brother disappeared when he was 6, which was up until he could not take the experiments anymore. Funny, I always thought that I would love my family and everyone else no matter what they did, but now, it seems kind of pointless. I sat up and swung my legs over the bed. Kirei, don't go anywhere, it's dangerous out there, you might get hurt and you still suffer from chakra depletion. I snapped my head to his face and glared. It doesn't matter where I go, I will always get hurt, even by the ones I love. I turned my attention to the window located near Sasuke's bed. I glanced at him and his eyes were open. I gave a small smile, then jumped out the window and took off. I tried to communicate with LK so she could mask my presence. I do not want anyone following me. I do not know where I was running to, but my legs stopped at the training grounds of Team 7 and where the monument was. So everything everyone said to me might have been a lie. I felt someone come near and it felt similar to Itachi's, so it must be Sasuke. I turned around and stared at him, then remembered the genjutsu I cast on him. Now he had no shirt and pierced nipples and a mohawk. I laughed and he sent a death glare my way. Leave it to King of Emo people to come and cheer me up. I sat down and he took a seat beside me. I want to know who you were talking to, and I frowned. Since when have you cared? He stared at me for a long time, then smirked. I know you're just saying that. What happened? Something horrible happened. I bit my lip. I killed Dosu. It was an accident, but I still felt guilty. I almost killed someone inside of me, and I also found out that I have an older brother who disappeared cause my father kept experimenting on him. My life just gets better and better. I sniffed. Outside was starting to get really cold. Sasuke did not respond. He just sat there, and I think it was better that way. He turned to me and frowned. What doesn't kill you can only make you stronger. I smiled. That's the smartest thing I think you've ever said. Maybe I should get rid of the genjutsu. I performed 2 seals and I was staring back at the normal Sasuke. He smiled and I couldn't help but smile back. That's the smartest thing that you've ever done. An image of the dream I had returned to me and I shivered. Promise me something. He did not respond, but I continued anyway. Stay here with me and don't go anywhere. I know you plan on avenging your clan, but you don't need to rush into it. You can stay here and get trained by the Hokage or something. Just don't go to anyone, don't go to Orochimaru. I know that seal will give you power, but is it worth it? Selling yourself to this madman so you can kill your brother. Will that make everyone come back? Please, don't leave me here. I could feel the tears start up again and I buried myself on his chest. I hope this means something to him. I hope he heeds my warning. You don't understand, he mumbled as he placed a hand on my head. I pulled away and sniffed. You don't understand, killing him won't solve anything, just promise. If anything, I'll teach you everything I know. I have to protect you. A cool wind blew and I could feel that the wind did not want to agree to what was going on. I promise, he said, staring right back at me. Let's head back to the hospital. I nodded, not caring anymore. As long as my dream of the monster Sasuke never comes true, then everything will be okay.